Washington and Julie Strain are our virtual coordinators. Carolyn, can you guys wave or something so they can
Hello,
see
I'm
you?
here. Hello.
Yeah, and Julie, is she around? There she is. So they will be monitoring everything. The one thing was that the problem, and I think Carolyn or Julie can speak to this if you don't mind, in terms of some of you guys being admitted, that we must see your names. So
Yes.
Carolyn, would you take a
Yes.
minute, and Julie, and introduce yourselves too?
Thank you, Stefana. Good morning, everyone. I am your virtual coordinator today, along with Julie. And Julie and I need to check you off to make sure that you are on our roster, first of all, and that we have your full name so that we can count you as here today. It's important for us because we need to make sure that those folks who are on this call are the folks that we are looking for and wanting to share this information with. So it's really important that you put your full name, the name you registered under, into your video panel. You can do that by hovering over your screen where you see your picture. You should see 3 dots pop up on the right-hand side up in the top corner, and you can change your name to reflect the name that you registered under. Okay, so I've gotten your message that some of you have problems with your cameras. That's fine. We do want you to participate. We'd love to see your faces. So whenever you have an opportunity to join a virtual session, make sure that your camera is working. Your faces are the constant reminder for us. Oh, we know that person. So make sure your name is spelled correctly and you are identified on your screen. If you have problems with that, you can chat with me and I can help you walk through it. Thank you. Enjoy
Thank
the
you.
day.
Thank you, Carolyn. Julie, you want to add anything?
Just make sure that you guys have a good time today. You learn something. You might want to have a notepad and a pencil out to take notes because you'll learn a lot today. And I'll be happy to see you tomorrow.
Thank you. One thing that is really also very important about Doctors on Board is that this is your opportunity to connect. This is the building your network for becoming a doctor. So sometimes if you don't have time to put it in your phone or something, have a pen, you can jot it down because sometimes this is just as quick. I know that sounds old school, but it also works because remember the doctors do have to write. So we want to make sure on that. And I cannot emphasize that enough because especially tomorrow it's going to be fast moving and you want to connect with as many people as you can. The other thing I want to remind you for on tomorrow is to make sure that you arrive on time. I want to remind you, please read that email again that has all the listings of what you should do for tomorrow. For example, what to wear. No what do you call them, sweatshirts or hoodies, no shorts. Part of it is because you get the doctor's coat and you can't put that stuff over the doctor's coat. And then there's nowhere to put it. And please don't bring a bag. Don't bring a backpack. Don't bring a laptop. Just bring a little wallet because we will be giving you a doctor's bag. So to put all your stuff in. So just remember that. Wear flat shoes. Comfortable tennis shoes are fine. Try to be nice to wear a shirt or a collared shirt. Remember, all of you signed a release. So sometimes we use those photos in our marketing and our activities. So we want you to look good. And so if you got something kind of strange on, we may love the photo, but if we may have to rule it out because of maybe what you're wearing or something. So, something simple is fine. Shirts and tops and dresses, and just be comfortable. And you can wear pants and slacks, low heels or flat shoes, or better, you can wear sneakers or athletic shoes. But that's very, very important. Um, Everybody tomorrow, when you go into the workshop, you will have gloves. So make sure that you can slide your hands into the gloves because you will be in a suture surgery clinic or examining patients, and you want to be able to easily put those gloves on. So are there any questions about the basics for tomorrow? Okay. There will be a lunch And then after the whole program is over, for those people who Carolyn and Julie check off that attended both the sessions will receive a certificate of completion. Remember, if you are in high school applying for college or you're applying for a scholarship, you can mention Doctors on Board. It's really a good thing to mention in your personal statements or any kind of statement that you're writing or a narrative. So just kind of little tips about things to do to make sure how to engage and make this program work for you in your journey to become doctors. Are there any questions that anybody just have that's really burning? My husband is registered on, it should be to come tomorrow. Does he need to join the Zoom? No, the Zoom is only for students. There shouldn't be any parents on here. Okay. So no, the Zoom is only for the student. Listen, part of Doctors on Board is to isolate you down so that students who want to be doctors connect with those people in the world of medicine, the world of doctors, the world of medical students and residents. So we try to isolate down so you guys get to focus on those people and they can focus on you. So it should be just the students and just the people on the panel in this workshop, okay? I think that's it. Anything else? I appreciate your credit. I'm trying to read all of these to make sure there's nothing. Anybody has any burning questions or something you would like to ask? Okay. All right. Well, with that said, I think we can start with our first workshop, Communications 101. And I would like to welcome Dana Abdelgadir, if she is she there, Dana? There she is, okay. All right, and Dana has been with Physicians Medical Forum. Doctors on Board is one of our programs, and we have other programs too. But we are the Physicians Medical Forum. So just keep that in mind. That's our name and not Doctors on Board, because some people think it's Doctors on Board. And Dana has been a part of our family, since the time she was at college. And now Dana is a medical student at UCLA. She has worked with us on many initiatives, including we decided that we saw so many things that needed to be improved in communications as you go through this journey, that we developed something called Communications 101, Best Practices to Achieve Your Goals. So Dana, would you like to have do an opening remarks?
Yeah, it's great to see all of you. I remember when I was in your shoes, so I joined when I was a freshman in college and have been with PMF since, and I've learned so much in these sessions that I know you guys are going to enjoy it so much today and tomorrow, and carry these things with you in the long run. So thanks for being here.
Okay, Dana, so we're going to power through this workshop. By the way, everything that we're telling you today is also on our website, pmfmd.com. And then you can scroll down, find Doctors on Board 2024, but you will also see 2023 and 2022. And maybe some other stuff, and you'll see a whole gallery. But all of the material for today is also already on the website, okay? So just to start off, Dana, I will take the email one, okay? I'll start off with that. So one of the things that we saw is in email communications. First of all, remember this, scholarship people, medical schools, they do not text. So email is very important. Email, and even though I know it seems like that some folks don't want to check their email, once you start applying to either colleges or medical schools, emails become very important. The other thing is to make sure that you check your spam, because a bunch of you, the emails went into spam, and it's very, very important. With email communication, make sure you don't use nicknames or I saw somebody had a nickname, a name like Jazzy something. Try not to do that. What we
No,
suggest is,
that was me. I literally changed my legal name from Jasmine to Jazz Hudson. So my name is Jazz Monique Hudson. It's not a nickname.
oh, it said Jazzy something else though.
Yeah, it's Jazz Monique Hudson. It's in my signature for my email, and it's also on my Zoom.
Okay, but in the email, what I'm saying is what came across was Jazzy. So now it may be straightened out.
That wasn't me then.
Okay, so this one here said Jazzzy something.
Oh,
But
yeah,
anyway,
no,
that's
that's
okay.
not me.
You follow my point. You get my drift. Okay. Okay. But and I just remembered that because we didn't know who it was, and there were more than one Jasmines, by the way. So so I can completely understand. But one of the things you may want to consider is setting up henceforth a Gmail account just for programs like Doctors on Board, for scholarships you apply for medical school applications or anything. You may just want to set up just an email, and that's the one that you use versus mixing it with all of your other communications. So, just consider that. The other thing is try to make sure, again, that you check your spam. If you are replying to someone, you said, make sure that you address that person in their full name, and please use spell check. They'll just kind of basic stuff. And sometimes we have to say, who are you? And remember, a lot of people have the same names. So sometimes we really need to have your full name so we know who you are and who are we responding to. Also, from our side, just keep in mind that, and other places where you're communicating, is that there are naughty people out there, and we've had people send us bogus stuff, and so just kind of bear with us sometimes because we're trying to figure it out if you are really who you say you are. We had 3 or 4 really crazy calls, and we get them every year, that somebody just doesn't want to see people like you become doctors. So just know that we're going through a lot on our end too, okay? So there's a couple of examples of how to do your signature. If you are sending out an email, please always put your phone number, and so that if you want us to get back to you, we would know that. It may be something like you're a medical student, or where you're in school and what your major is or something. So we gave a couple of examples on that. Okay. Okay. The next one, Dana, would you like to take the next one?
Yes. And I believe the next one, maybe on the next page, is knowing the difference between reply and reply all. Yeah, there we go. So when we send out an email to a lot of people, we'll send it, and sometimes we use the function of BCC, right? And so, or CC. And so we have a lot of people on an email chain. Here and there, people tend to mix up responding and clicking reply and reply all. And when you click reply all, now you're sending information that you meant to send to one person to a whole bunch of people. And so be conscious of what you're clicking when you're responding to an email, to make sure that your email is going only to the intended person. And the BCC feature, which is blind copy, I don't know if you all are aware of that. It's a feature to kind of that has other recipients on the email, but you may not see that there's other recipients on the email. So all of that just goes back into making sure that you're clicking reply instead of reply all, because then you're going to be stuck trying to undo that and sending out a whole bunch of other emails telling everybody, oops, that was a mistake, that information. And if it was private information, that information wasn't for you. So make sure you know the difference between those two features.
Okay. One thing also, sometimes you
next
will,
one, which is,
you see the other one? Let me just add, sometimes you will see an email and it will have everybody's email on there. That's so that maybe a group needs to see, so that you don't have to forward it, who the email went to. But again, you may not reply back to all of those people. You just may reply to the sender, or the person you received the email to. But that's so for example, the people at Charles Drew, I will send them an email and say, oh, I'm looking forward to seeing you on Sunday, so they can see all of their fellow medical students, but they will reply just back to me, because the other people don't need to see that reply. So unless it is something that they need to see. Okay, I just wanted to add that. Okay, go on. Oh, don't forget LinkedIn too.
Oh, wait, did I not do LinkedIn?
Okay.
I think LinkedIn is later on. Yeah.
Okay.
So formatting. When you're sending an email, especially a professional email, the most important thing is formatting, because if I get a chunk of text, I may not read that and it looks like just a bunch of run-on sentences. It's overwhelming. I might think it's spam, and I may not read it. So what you want to do is make sure that you're breaking up your email into shorter chunks, being 1 or 2 sentences. For example, the first chunk, maybe you're introducing yourself. I'm Dana, I'm a medical student. I met you at blah, 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 blah. Next chunk is your ask, for example. Like, I was reaching out, wondering if you'd be willing to connect, etc. So you want to make sure you're breaking up your email. When I say breaking up, you have like a space in between, the paragraphs. And that just makes it easier to read and digest for the person that you're sending it to. And in doing so, it just looks cleaner, it looks more professional, and I'm more likely to kind of read it than to like see this big chunk of text and be like, I don't know what's going on. On that note, make sure that you're using professional language, no slang, no abbreviations. You're not sending a text. And that's the difference between like sending a text where you can just like send the whole thing with, like sentence after sentence, versus like an email where you want to format it to look nice, and break up those chunks. And I think the last point there that we have is a well-written, concise email could make a lot of difference. Again, most of the time when you're sending a professional email, you're doing it for a job, a connection, an admission, a scholarship, whatever it may be, mentorship. And so you are kind of selling yourself, and you have to make sure that you're coming off as professional as possible, and you're not using informal language. So no LOLs, no the only time it's appropriate really to use abbreviations is when it's the name of an organization, and only when the recipient is familiar with that organization. Otherwise, you want to make sure you write out the name of the organization. So overall, make sure you're formatting emails as emails, and know the difference between like sending an email and sending a text message.
Okay. Is data clear to everyone? I think she's breaking up a little bit. Is anybody having problems understanding? Okay, because I can't see it because we have the screen shared. So the other thing is, I don't know how many of you use LinkedIn, but have a little LinkedIn profile. But if you don't, even if you're in high school, you can have a very short LinkedIn profile. It may work for your whole presentation of yourself, because remember, you are establishing your digital footprint. And it's amazing. I sit on various scholarship applications committees, and often I will Google a student to see what's out there. And because if you're trying to give somebody $5, $10, $15, $20,000, you know what they may say and who they really are, what they're really doing. You just want to make sure you're giving them money or supporting someone that is really about becoming a doctor. Again, we are primarily speaking about becoming a doctor, but these are good tips for other professions too. and other scholarships and other things that you may want to do. Okay. So far, can you take the take it down now, Carolyn? Okay, bring us back. Okay. All right, and then we can see all of, okay. It's obvious that many of you know that texting is the name of the game. But a lot of times when you are sending someone an email from a text, it comes out different, as you know. So be careful when you are sending an email from your phone, and because it looks different from your laptop and maybe your computer. So be aware of that. I mean, you have no idea. We got hundreds, we must have close to 800 applications, and you guys were the ones that were selected. You would be surprised in the personal statement that was 200 words, how much there were grammatical errors. Many people put small cap for I. You know, you got to clean that up. You guys got to watch that stuff. Okay. It's really, really important when somebody asks you to write a little personal statement. There was, I think there's a spell check on ours, but a lot of times they don't have spell check. Always, always, especially if you're doing an ask, to spell check. The other thing is to make sure it's important, at least for me, it's very important. I don't know about others, but the subject line. If I don't know you and you have a good subject line, you have a 100% chance of me looking at your email. If your subject line says, hi, I'm not looking at that. But if your subject line says, I'm Mace. Hi, this is Mason McGowan, participated 2024 DOB question. Then I got it because I know something. Okay. I can collect to that. Okay. So subject lines help people to go through the litany of emails that we all get. So use them and use them well. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Is there anything, Dana, that you would like to add? Anything about the Zoom tips? You guys all know about Zoom, I'm assuming. And you guys all know about phones. And you also know about how the difference between the breakup on a cell phone and somebody, because I get this all the time. Where I live, my cell phone reception is horrible. I have a landline, so it's better to use a landline, and then I don't have to miss part of the conversation and vice versa. So just be aware that your cell phone could be breaking up. If you hear somebody talking loud or somebody not clear, or it sounds different from what they said. So please, please understand that even though we're all glued to our cell phones, that this is about your future, and it's really important that your communications is up to par and help you in your journey to become doctors. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, Dana, wow. Okay. All right, Dana, any other questions? Okay. All right. So with that said, I think we can move it on, and thank you, Dana. Thank you for your being here, and congratulations. And you'll be finishing your first year at UCLA School of Medicine, right? Yeah. And
Yes,
what kind of doctor do
absolutely.
you want to be? What kind of doctor?
I'm thinking emergency medicine right now, but there's a few things I'm considering, so we'll see. And I'm looking forward to connecting with all of you in person tomorrow if you have any more questions.
Yeah, yes. So Dana wanted to be first an orthopedic surgeon, and now she's moved to emergency medicine.
It's
So
still there, but we'll see. Yeah.
okay, all right,
Thank
all
you,
right.
Dana.
Were there any questions in the chat that we need to answer? Anybody? If somebody raise your hand, if somebody has something that they wanna, because we got a minute or so. Nope. Okay. All right. That's good. Okay. All right. Thank you, Dana. And Miss Carolyn, we're on. for the next workshop. How many of you want to be surgeons? Can you raise your hands? Some kind of surgeon. Raise your hand with your, so I can see it. You know, there's a little icon there that raises your hand while she's doing that. Oh, okay. Oh, look at that. Surgeons, okay. How many want to be OBGYNs of that group? Okay, all right, OBGYN, okay. So now we are great, thank you for that. And I know there are plenty that want to be family medicine. We always get a lot of that. Some of the internal medicine, family medicine, pediatrics, cardiologists, all of those specialties. Okay, so are we ready for the next presentation? This is the Association of American Medical Colleges. All of you, and I'm hoping some of the high school students know, but if not, the AAMC, most of you guys know this is a very, very important workshop, and they are coming in from Washington, D.C. So please listen. If you don't know about the Association of American Medical Colleges, please make sure you go to their website. Okay. Wait, we would like to welcome the three of you. The weather, how is Washington, D.C.?
So we're all kind of spaced out around like the DMV area. So I'm in Maryland. It's a little just like looking around the window, a little gloomy, but a little chilly, but not too bad.
Okay. Well, welcome all three of you to the Doctors on Board program. And with that said, we understand that Jenna, and if I mispronounce your name, Jenna Wimsatt,
Yep.
Kate Jackson, and Nia Brown. And is somebody going to be monitoring the chat as well?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay, great. Because they may put questions in the chat. With that said, Jenna, you're on. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Let me get the presentation up and rolling. Okay, well, hello, everyone. My name is Jenna Wimsatt, and I'm a digital communications and outreach specialist at the Association of American Medical Colleges. And I'm joined here today by Kate. Did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Jenna. I'm Kate Jackson. I'm a senior communications and outreach specialist here. I also work on the preview program. Naya?
Awesome. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Nia Brown. I am also a senior communications and outreach specialist here at the AAMC, working primarily with the MCAT exam.
Awesome. Thank you both. I'll go ahead and, oh, it's working. Okay, awesome. So for those of you that don't know about the Association of American Medical Colleges, also known as the AAMC, our mission is to lead and serve the academic medicine, leads and serves academic medicine to improve the health of people everywhere. So we work in different mission areas of medical education, research, etc. And one of the things we're here to talk to you about today is the pathway of a pre-med and applying to medical school. So as you can see from this crazy colorful slide, there are many different ways that you can have your journey to medical school. There's all different paths, which is what this represents. Today, we're going to talk about one suggested pathway of that's typically of when our services and programs are used. However, that doesn't mean it's the only pathway that you can take. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with aspiring docs, the pre-med navigator, and anatomy of an applicant, which are some of our resources that we recommend using early on before you begin to develop your application and take the different steps through the process of applying to medical school. So the pre-med navigator, which Naya and I are both editors and writers for the pre-med navigator, it's one of our babies. It is a monthly newsletter that comes out the first Sunday of every month. We have over 100,000 subscribers, and there's anybody from students to advisors that look at our navigator, and it includes information, resources, tools and tips, as well as pre-med calendar reminders. And you can subscribe by going to amc.org/pre-med navigator. So I highly recommend looking at this if you're just getting started with your journey and want to learn more about our programs and services, as well as other things that other students may have written for us along the way in different articles. Aspiring Docs is another great resource to really get you started on your journey. And it's a very inspiring place with different stories from different current medical students, as well as those who've already graduated. There's anything from fact sheets, resource articles. We have a section called Inspiring Stories that talks about those who had different challenges and how they persevered and applied to medical school, and also advice from advisors and admissions officers. So you can go look at these at amc.org/aspiring docs. And in addition to Aspiring Docs, we also have our Aspiring Docs blog. So you can go to aspiringdocsdiaries.org, and here you'll find real personal stories from different medical students, residents, and pre-meds, and learn more about their journeys and how they overcame them and how they filled out the application, and also different topics, whether it's regarding stress or using the AMCAS application. So this is a great place to start as well if you're just looking to get some ideas and to get a feel for more of what your journey may look like. And now we're going to talk about one of my other favorite resources. This is Anatomy of an Applicant. We did just update our pre-med competencies. We now have 17. They're under these categories here: pre-professional, thinking and reasoning, as well as science. And what's really great about these is these represent what admissions officers are looking for in their applicants. So in order to be a well-rounded applicant, they look to see if you have these competencies in these different categories. And what's great about this is we do have a self-assessment guide on the website. So you can go there and there will be a separate page for each competency. And you can use this to kind of figure out, what have I already done in my work and activities, for example, that maybe represents commitment to learning and growth. And you can write that out and really brainstorm and think through it. So then when you do get to the point of filling out your application, you've already kind of written out these ideas and you're ready to go, and you know what you want to show within your application as well as in your personal comments essay too. So this is just something to keep in mind while you're doing your work and activities. It doesn't mean that each activity you do has to represent all 17 competencies. You can have one that represents 8 different competencies. So just keep that in mind as you're looking for shadowing, volunteer opportunities, and when you're actually filling out your AMCAS application. Well, I got a little ahead of myself, but here is an example, and you can go to amc.org/competencies to find all of the information that I just talked about. We also have some stories in there as well about applicants and their application, and it shows which competencies they incorporate throughout the application, so you can see an example of what that would look like. And again, look at the self-assessment guide and become familiar with these pre-med competencies and what they mean. You can find all of that again at amc.org/competencies. So now I'm going to talk about the Summer Health Professions Education Program. Let me move this bar over so I can see. There we go. So it is a free summer career enrichment program for college freshmen and sophomores. And you can choose any track from dentistry, medicine, nursing, optometry, pharmacy, physical therapy, and public health. The application always opens on November 1st and will close at the beginning of February. So this is just going over some other ways you can gain experience in addition to the SHPP program. You could be a hospice volunteer, certified nursing assistant, volunteer EMT, hospital scribe, caretaker, and you can find other summer enrichment opportunities at services.amc.org/summer programs. Oh, and I just want to back up real quick. So just to give a little bit more information about SHPP that I forgot to mention. So it is, as I said, completely free. It is a 6-week summer enrichment opportunity. They will pay to fly you out to the location. And on your application, you can pick up to 3 different locations you want to choose from out of the 12 that are offered. And we always recommend picking one that is more, also picking 2 that are kind of out of your comfort zone. And what's great about this is you'll get clinical experience and just hands-on learning that you may not get through other opportunities. It's a great way to really figure out what track you want to be on and to try different things. You do go in with one main track that you're picking, but you do get immersed a little bit in the other ones as well. And it looks really good on applications. I'd say about 65% of those that do go through SHPP and are getting accepted to either medical school or dental school. So it's just a great thing to keep in mind. And again, it is freshmen and sophomores, and you cannot exceed when you're applying over 60 credits. So just keep that in mind as well. So now we're going to dive into the programs and services section and talk about the fee assistance program, the MCAT exam, the preview exam, and the MSAR online database. So I'll go ahead and kick off with fee assistance. Let me move this over. Perfect. So the fee assistance program provides financial assistance for those who otherwise would be unable to take the MCAT exam or apply to medical school. So it's just it's a $2,000 benefit for those that are awarded fee assistance. And here are the program benefits. So we have a reduced MCAT registration and rescheduling fees, free MCAT preparation resources, complimentary access to the MSAR tool, which Kate will talk about a little bit later. It's our medical school admission requirements online database, as well as a waiver for all AMCAS fees for up to 20 medical school designations, waiver for the AMC preview professional readiness exam, which Kate will also talk about later as well, consideration for a stipend to assist with the cost of an updated evaluation if needed for MCAT accommodations, and then 60% fee discount on up to 50 AROS applications, which is brand new this year. And please keep in mind that benefits are not retroactive. So for example, if you go ahead and schedule for an MCAT exam and you've already paid, and then you find out later that you did receive the fee assistance benefit, you would not be able to go back and get refunded for that MCAT exam. So you want to make sure when you're starting your journey that you look at this first before anything else, because you also want to make sure you get the complimentary access to the MSAR, which we recommend looking at early so you can look at the different medical school profiles and decide where you want to apply. So that's just something to keep in mind. So how do you become eligible for the fee assistance program? So for one, you do have to have a US-based home address. And approval is tied to the US Department of Health and Human Services poverty level guidelines. So for the previous calendar year, so 2023, applicants whose total family income is 400% or less of the poverty level for their family size will be approved for fee assistance. And you also have to be preparing to apply to medical school. And you can find all this information, including the benefits, the requirements, what tax documentation you would need. And those who are under 26 will also require parental information. So please keep that in mind. And you can find all this information on amc.org/FAP. So now I'm going to dive into the MCAT, the Medical College Admission Test, which I'm sure many of you have heard about. It's a standardized multiple choice computer-based exam. It's required by all US and multiple Canadian medical schools. It assesses problem solving, critical thinking, knowledge of scientific concepts and principles. So here are the 4 different sections that you'll be tested on. You have biological and biochemical foundations of living systems, chemical and physical foundations of biological systems, psychological, social, and biological foundations of behavior, and then critical analysis and reasoning skills, as we call the core section. And some of the classes that you've already taken, for example, introduction to biology, your chemistry classes, organic chemistry, physics, etc. These are all those classes that will help you with studying for these 4 different sections on the exam. And here are the 4 sections as far as scores. So you can score from 118 to 132, and the total score is 472 to 528. And scores are released 30 to 35 days after the test day. And you can find all the score releases as well as the testing dates on the MCAT website where our US and Canadian schedules are located. But when is the right time to take the exam? So questions to ask yourself: you need to know when you want to apply to medical school. Do you understand or feel comfortable with the content tested on the exam? Is there a possibility you may need to retake the exam? You can take the exam up to 7 times in your lifetime. It is 4 times in 2 consecutive years and 3 times in 1 year. So just make sure you keep that in mind as you are scheduling for your exam. And also, if you do think you're going to want to take it again, make sure you pick a test that's earlier on, because you want to make sure you have those opportunities to take the test before your medical school deadlines would approach. because yes, you can submit your application without your MCAT score included, and it will automatically be uploaded into your application once the score is available. But you want to make sure that that score will still be in by those deadlines if your application is already in, if that makes sense. And the same thing goes for preview, which Kate will talk about later. So, and you can also in there, which is great, you can put down if you have anticipated future test dates. So that way when medical schools are looking at your application, they know, hey, this they have another test scheduled for so-and-so month and date. So they know to go back and look before making their final decisions. That's something else you want to keep in mind. And medical schools do receive all exam scores. So even if you you know, if you don't study as much, you don't feel like you're ready, you want to make sure that you take the exam when you feel you're at your best. Everyone studies differently, and everybody does have different lengths of time that they need to study. So you want to make sure that, you know, you take the time that you need. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. Everyone is different. And so that way you have the best score, because as we just said, the schools do see all of your scores. So just keep that in mind. And we do have some study materials online as well. So these are some of the resources and products. There's the guide to creating a study plan, how I prepared for the MCAT exam testimonials that you can read. These are pretty new, and you can look at different students and see what they did that helped them be successful in their MCAT exam. There's the Khan Academy MCAT collection, official guide to the MCAT exam, 4 full-length practice exams, flashcards, and question packs and sets. And you can find all of this at amc.org/MCAT prep. So now I'm going to pass it over to Kate, who will kick us off with the preview exam, as well as talk about the AMCAS application, financing, and more. So take it away, Kate.
Thanks, Jenna. Yes, so as she said, I'm going to talk about the AAMC preview professional readiness exam. This is an exam that's beyond the MCAT, and the AAMC noted that to provide even better care for patients, the next generation of doctors need to understand more than chemistry and human anatomy. They'll need to provide compassionate care that nurtures their patient's mind and body. They will need to collaborate effectively with multidisciplinary medical teams and navigate emotional, cultural, and ethical challenges with resiliency. So the AAMC designed the preview exam to look beyond academic metrics to assess core personal skills such as resilience, service orientation, ethics, teamwork. Could you go back to the previous slide, Jenna? So you could see those, those professional competencies. Thank you. Yeah, so when combined with other parts of the admissions process, these scores from the preview exam will provide medical school admissions officers with more of a complete view of you as an applicant. The preview exam is designed to measure examinees' understanding of effective professional behaviors across 9 of AAMC's core competencies for entering medical students, which is represented here in this image. So as a product of its design, the preview score is an evaluation for these competencies. It doesn't tell us how you'll behave in a specific context, but rather gives information about the extent to which you know whether behaviors are effective or ineffective. It reflects your it reflects your potential capacity to learn and develop in these competency areas, which is a necessary precursor to engaging in effective behavior. We can move on now. So here I'm going to give an overview of the preview exam. Just a brief one. The exam takes about 75 minutes to complete, and it offers the convenience of testing at a location of your choosing, like your home or the library, while also maintaining a high level of security with live remote human proctoring. The AAMC preview exam can only be taken on a desktop or a laptop. It cannot be taken on a cell phone or a tablet. There's a flat fee for the exam, which includes unlimited score distribution to participating schools, and examinees who are approved to receive benefits from the AAMC fee assistance program will have that fee waived. New this year, the American Medical College Application Service, AMCAS program, participating medical schools are invited to use the AAMC preview professional readiness exam in their admissions process. MD granting schools can choose how they'll consider the preview scores in their application review. And this information will be available in the MSAR, the medical school admissions requirements, which I will talk about in a minute. So you just need to refer to those resources or contact the school directly to learn more about how they will use the preview scores. Preview exam will be offered for 7 testing windows that begin in March and ends in October. The score reports will be released about 30 days after each test window, and you will receive your scores on the same day as the scores are released to the schools that you apply to. The preview exam does provide students with free prep resources. These include an examinee preparation guide as well as the practice exam booklet. The prep guide provides preparation advice and strategies for completing the preview exam. The practice exam booklet includes a full-length practice exam with scoring key and rationales for all items. This is to help you become familiar with the format of the exam, the types of scenarios used to evaluate your understanding of the professional competencies, and the process for evaluating responses. So I encourage you to look to review these resources, locate them on our website. Moving on, we are going to talk about the medical school admissions requirements, the MSAR. Both Jenna and I have mentioned it a bit. So each medical school is different. And on average, you will apply to about 17 medical schools, but that's a lot of different programs to choose from. So how do you determine where you should apply? That's where the MSAR would come in. Every applicant is different, and so is your story, so are your experiences. Each medical school is the same. They have their own story, their own experiences, their own mission, their own culture. And with the MSAR, you can view each medical school's mission statement and a ton of other information for free, which describes the school's medical teaching philosophy, their core values, and what they're looking for in their applicants. It can be helpful to think about what are you looking for in terms of your own goals and values, and do they align with the medical schools? So this resource can help you prepare for the application process and choose where to apply. Some of the features of the MSAR are listed here. So when you get to the point where you're making your decision about where to apply, it can be tempting to focus only on your academic requirements and medical school statistics, but this is going to be where you're spending the next 4 years. So there's a lot of factors you want to consider. With the MSAR tool, you can search for schools by location, median MCAT score or GPA, and then review school-specific data, save and rank your favorites, save notes on your favorites, and review pre-medical coursework. Subscribers can also view complete school data, including things like student data, volunteer experiences, and you can even compare medical schools side by side. You can get that information at aamc.org/MSAR. Next, we have the official guide to medical school admissions is a chapter guidebook, which outlines the admissions process, but it also highlights other things like medical career options, how to prepare for medical school, what medical students study, and how admissions decisions are made. We often recommend looking into this resource early in your process to get a handle on what's involved and help you develop your own application timeline. This also includes access to PDF worksheets, and you can get this again at aamc.org/MSAR. So now you've taken your prereqs, you've gotten your experience, and you're ready to apply using our AMCAS system. So here's what you need to know. The American Medical College Application Service, AMCAS program, is a little like the Common App many of you used when applying to college. You will complete one application. The AMCAS program will verify and process your submitted application and then send it to your designated medical schools electronically. The AMCAS program will also distribute your letters of evaluation, your MCAT scores directly to the medical schools. So here is a look at the typical application timeline. This is what we call the AMCAS application cycle. The AMCAS cycle is 1 year ahead of the current calendar year. And it's offset like this because the application cycle corresponds to when you hope to start medical school. And it starts in May of every year. The AMCAS cycle starts in May of every year. Medical schools will not begin receiving processed applications until late June. Once your process application is sent, medical schools will begin their review process, which usually involves secondary applications and in-person interviews. So keep in mind, medical school admissions are rolling, so submitting your materials earlier rather than later is a good idea. You will need to keep track of the medical school's AMCAS application deadlines, as this is the date your application needs to be submitted. Official transcripts must be received by the AMCAS program within 14 calendar days from a medical school deadline. These deadlines are detailed in the medical school section of the application as well as on our website. The information requested of you in the AMCAS application is relatively straightforward, but it's very detailed, so it will take time. Know that completing your application will take time. And you can get more information there on that at wmc.org/AMCAS. The AMCAS application has 9 sections, which are listed here on the screen, and it asks for a range of information about yourself. Some of these sections are self-explanatory, but the ones that are highlighted in green require a bit more time and thought. So in the coursework section, which is number 4, bottom middle, you'll enter every college level course you have attempted or completed. An official transcript is required from each post-secondary institution in the US and Canada. And requesting an official transcript for yourself is really helpful when completing this section. The work and activities section, which is dead center, is designed to give you the opportunity to highlight your work experience, your extracurricular activities, awards, honors, or publications. You may add up to 15 entries in this section, and you can select up to 3 as the most meaningful, which you'll be asked to reflect on in writing. Then you have your personal comments essay or your personal statement. That's number 8. This will also take a significant amount of time for you to draft and finalize. It's an important part of the application process because this is your first chance to convey to medical schools why medicine. There's not a formula for your essay or a right way to craft it, but it should be unique to you and your story. So we do have some resources and tools in the AMCAS program. Guides and video tutorials are available on our website. We also have a YouTube channel, an applicant guide, and lots of FAQs to help you navigate the application. And we also have a fantastic contact center who are available to answer your questions about the AMCAS program and the MCAT exam. All right, so moving on here, we're going to talk about the first program. And give you some good general advice for medical school. So you're going to want to get to know your school's financial aid team. You're going to be proactive in getting all your questions answered and know that the financial aid counselors are there to help guide you. You are also going to track your expenses. This is a vital life skill that will serve you well in the future. So it's best to get started with that now, help develop healthy habits. And you are going to know what you borrowed and who you borrowed it from. This sounds like very basic information, but you need to know this for when it comes time for repayment. I recommend becoming familiar with the first program that AAMC offers, financial information, resources, services, and tools first. The first program can equip you with these tips, tools, and information that will help you borrow wisely. And when it comes time, they will help you with repaying your student loans responsibly. First can help you understand the financial aid process, manage your finances during medical school, and learn about loan repayment options. Some of the things that you'll find when you visit the first website are fact sheets, which are short articles that cover topics that can be difficult to understand, videos and webinars that talk about ways to pay for medical school and how to repay your federal student loans. First resources, which include repayment charts, timelines, budgeting worksheets, and tip cards. And there is also a tool called the Med Loans Organizer and Calculator, which helps you to organize your student loans and run repayment scenarios. So moving on, one of the ways to help minimize your financial stress is to learn as much as possible about student aid and funding options. So when you visit the first homepage, you're going to use the Search First button. It's just a separate search tool from the main website. It's highlighted there in orange. This search tool specifically searches for first financial resources. You can search by audience, like pre-med or resident, by topic, like financial aid and managing money, or even using your own word search. And you'll get that at aamc.org/first. Continuing on, in addition to all the helpful financial information that First offers, you'll also find our financial wellness program. This is a financial literacy program that provides information that we all need to know about various financial topics like budgeting, creating a budget, credit, taxes, insurance, and a lot more. So I definitely recommend visiting this link here, aamc.org/financial wellness. Now, I know Jenna and I gave you a lot of information in a very short window of time. If you can, I recommend taking a screenshot of this screen. I also want to highlight and note that Naya has been putting the links to every slide that we had in the chat. So please take advantage of those links. It's got all of our websites in one place. We do have upcoming events. So the next one is navigating the 2025 AMCAS application cycle for applicants. This will be happening on Wednesday, April 17th, 2024. Naya again has put the link in the chat for you to register for this. I recommend you can take a screenshot of this or click that link to get more information about it. This webinar will prepare you for the 2025 application cycle. Again, it's a year in advance of when you hope to start medical school. You'll get a walkthrough of the AMCAS application. You'll learn what's new in the application and available AMCAS resources. All right. So now that we have come to the end of our presentation, we want to wish you good luck and open the floor up for questions. I know some have been coming in through the chat.
I can go ahead and share those, Kate.
Okay.
I think I'm getting a little bit of feedback, but hopefully it'll stop. All right, so a couple of questions we have. I think this would be directed at Jenna, but Kate, of course, if you want to jump in on this. Would applications for the Summer Health Professions Education Program be available for incoming freshmen and sophomore students only, or are younger students able to apply before then?
So, wait, am I off mute? Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Awesome. Okay. So it is only for freshmen and sophomores. And unfortunately, if you are, let's say, a sophomore and you are over 60 credits, you cannot apply, but it cannot be for anybody that's younger than a freshman.
Great, thank you. And then we have an MCAT question, so I'll go ahead and take that. Does MCAT superscore or combine the best of different settings? Thank you. No, we do not superscore. So those scores that Jenna showed earlier, that larger score that you saw up there will be a combination of those sections. And then the medical schools will receive all of those scores. So they'll be able to see your scores for each section as well as your larger MCAT score. Then we have a question about, another question about summer programs. So just to confirm, the summer programs are only available for students with 60 credits or less.
Okay, excuse me, Kay, can you unshare your screen so we can see them? The presentation is still up.
Oh, what are you looking to look at?
Yeah, it says good luck in your journey. Your presentation?
Yes.
You got it still sharing, so it's still showing. There we go. Okay, there we go. Thank you. All right, go right ahead with your questions. Thank you.
Okay, so just to ask that again, it's the summer programs are only available for students with 60 credits or less.
Correct.
As far as SHPEP, yes, but we do have a link, I believe, to some summer enrichment opportunities that you can take advantage of. I'm just scrolling back up to make sure that we drop that in there, that are not SHPEP and will have different requirements.
Are there specific initiatives that AAMC has for high school kids that are in high school and want to go to, planning to go to college and then medical school, maybe just for high school kids? Do you guys don't have anything?
We do have some documents on how students can prepare academically, what extracurricular opportunities that they should look for, how to find out about those opportunities. And again, that link for these summer enrichment programs is really helpful because it shows what programs and internships are available to high school students. and also some guides on what students should consider when they are applying and how they can get hands-on patient care experiences, but we don't necessarily have any like program content that is directed for high school students at this time.
Okay. I have another question. Can you speak to the importance of the personal statement and why that is so important? Because some people sometimes, I think, may not realize the significant weight that it can carry sometimes when they are writing their personal statements, whether it's to the medical school or whatever. Can you speak to that? Someone?
Do you want me to take it, Kate, or do you want to take it?
Would you take that, please?
Absolutely. So I love talking about the personal statement essay because it's, everything else, the application, you don't get a section, to explain yourself except for like your 3 most meaningful work activities. So if there's anything in there where you're like, I kind of want to explain, why did I not do as well in a class as I did? Or why was my MCAT score lower? And maybe it's because you had some other challenges going on in your life that were affecting what you were doing to apply to medical school, or there's just some other things that you want to explain. So not only is it a great spot to freely write about challenges you're going through, but it's your why. It's why do I want to be a doctor? Why should I be in medical school? Why am I passionate about this? So it is your space to really plead your case of this is why I'm passionate about this and this is why I should be at your medical school, and explain any gaps in your application that you are worried may be misinterpreted by admissions officers that you want to clarify from your point of view and that comes straight from you. So that is really the importance of the personal statement essay. And I recommend that when you're doing this, you talk to your advisor, you have them review it as well, check for grammar mistakes. And it's always good to write it in like another platform, for example, Notepad, and then copy it over to the application to make sure that everything is in there correctly and there's no mistakes as well, since Notepad does remove formatting. So I don't know if anyone else has anything to add on to that, but that's just my take on it. So
Yeah, just a quick thing to add. We do have a couple of articles covering the AMCAS application and specifically the personal statement in the Pre-Med Navigator, so you can access all of those past articles and articles that are going to be coming up on that Pre-Med Navigator website, and then you'll get them directly to your inbox if you are subscribed to the Pre-Med Navigator. It does come out the first Sunday of each month, as Jenna mentioned earlier, so that will be tomorrow.
Just one other thing about the personal statements. One of the things, because I think this is a really big issue with a lot of students. And one of the things that I notice is when they ask you, why do you want to be a doctor? Or can you explain, what made you want to be a doctor and what, they don't go into what kind of doctor you want to be because you may not know at that point. But I've noticed that if they have so many words, let's say they got 500 or X number of words, 3/4 of it will be written on about my mom was sick or my grandma was sick, and very little about why they want to be a doctor, okay? Or what they're thinking, what's driving them in medicine. So we've been trying to say, do a part of that because that is part of your statement, but also speak to you and becoming a doctor and what's driving you, not just your family, but you to become. I want to cure whatever, or I want to find a device to help with diabetes or whatever you want to do, or I just want to make, delivering babies, blah, something. So I just want to hone in on this personal statement because I think it is critically important, especially henceforth with the Supreme Court issue and what's going on. So can you guys maybe address that a little bit more because y'all see it?
yeah, I would just say, like, I totally get your point. Yes, you do want to make it more about why you want to be a doctor. And like, yes, I get, here, let me start over. So I think it's good to mention your family. Like, let's say, your mom is the reason that you're motivated to go to medical school, then that's different. But if you don't want to spend your whole essay, I guess, talking about your challenges. Now, if you feel that you need to, and it's a longer story and it leads up to, this is why I'm also passionate about it, then go for it. This is your space. I wouldn't say there's a right or wrong way to writing your essay. It's more just covering what you feel is something that you'd want the admission officers to know before they would make their decision. But you do, of course, want to make sure you center it mostly on, this is why I'm passionate about medicine and why I want to go to medical school and make a difference in the world and help people.
Yes. And it's important because,
One question.
oh yes, question.
Yeah, one question I had, and I just need to say this. I graduated from the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, and as you know, they now offer free tuition to all students who are accepted. So, you know, with the $200,000 in debt, most graduating students from Einstein were getting crushed by it. NYU offers also free tuition. So there's starting to be this set of schools that are starting to help with tuition. And I know that will influence where students apply, because if you don't want to go into crushing debt, you know, you.
Whoops, I think we lost him.
Uh-oh.
Dr. Brooks, I think he lost him. I think his point was, is he still there?
No, I don't think I see his name.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think his point was that, you know, with all different
Maybe
initiatives.
try to choose one of those.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I'm there.
You broke up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
was just. Anyway, students should consider Einstein or NYU.
Okay. But I think the key is that to make sure that you spend a good portion of your statement, because it's weighted so heavily on focusing on the importance of you being the doctor, and because remember, all medical schools, they already know all the pathologies about infant mortality, and you know whether it's heart disease and amongst a particular community. The key is to get to your drive and what's pushing you. That's so important. And I just noticed that. So I really wanted to bring that up because I think it's going to be even more important to have a really good person statement. Okay.
Yeah, it's important to make sure that you know that students know that this is their first opportunity to convey why they're choosing medical school, medicine in general, and that information can't be reflected anywhere else there's no opportunity for it to be reflected anywhere else in the application.
Okay. Are there any other questions that you may have? Students, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, we have some more questions in the chat, so I can go ahead and address
Okay, please go then.
Okay. Okay, we have a question about the first section and about kind of financial aid in general. I don't know if anybody has these stats pulled up exactly, but I'll just throw it out there and hopefully one of you can tackle it. How much money do students borrow typically for medical school?
So the data from 2020 reflects that students come out of medical school with about $200,000 to $220,000 of debt, and that is 4 years ago. So,
Ooh.
Yeah. So you just want to know what you're getting into, but there are, like I said, our first program offers information on how to create a budget. Our financial wellness program also has information about after your medical education, where you can get a job in the federal government sector to help you repay those loans after public service. So there are opportunities to repay those loans that are realistic.
Thanks, Kate. So we have a question about MCAT. Has there been any changes to MCAT and its requirements since 2015? As you may or may not know, the MCAT was updated in 2015. As far as content changes, many of the questions are very similar. You will not ever receive the same MCAT exam as the next person taking it. All of those questions are different and the order of them will be different and things like that. As far as requirements, Stephanie, do you mind clarifying what you mean by requirements so we can answer your question fully? You can go ahead and put that in the chat or come off mute and we'll move on.
Is that Stephanie Lawless?
Brown.
Okay. Guess you didn't. Okay.
Who said like classes or pre-med?
Okay. as far as what the content of the exam, I'll actually drop a link to this so that everybody can have access to it. Let me just find that. The what's on the MCAT content outline will give you a full look at what is actually tested on the exam. So it'll tell you about those content areas as well as courses, prerequisites, things like that, where that content would have been covered previously. So all of that information will be at this link here. All right. We have a question about MSAR. Kate mentioned that we can find info on schools for free. When I try to look it up, I have to be a subscriber. Could you clarify that?
Yeah, so there is a free portion of the MSAR, but then beyond a certain point, you do have to be a subscriber. However, one of the benefits of the fee assistance program, of which the benefits are not retroactive, is having a free 1-year subscription to that MSAR. So I recommend you look into the fee assistance program first.
Will this presentation will we be able to post that on our website, just the presentation part too? Can we use that? Do we have to we have some information from you guys. Should we just put can we do that or just direct them to your website? What do you want me to do?
So we normally don't share the
Okay.
presentation, but we
Okay.
do have a recording of this presentation on our webinars webpage, which Naya, do you mind sharing that in the chat? Thank you.
Please,
So that it
thank
can be
you.
watched
Yeah.
there again, and you can see the slides. And also, if you do have additional questions that maybe you think about after, we do have a virtual medical school fair. It starts on the booth part. At least there'll be a booth where a bunch of us that work at the AMC will be in it and can answer questions. That starts on the, is it the 10th or 11th? It is, okay, it is the so it's the 10th or the 12th. There's information sessions that you can attend as well, and there is a post-bac program fair on April 12th from 11 to 5, but you can chat with medical schools as well as AMC representatives on April 11th, so next Thursday, April 11th, from 11 to 7. This is all Eastern time, so
Great.
11 to 7
Okay.
Eastern time. And here, let me share my screen again real quick, because I can show you if anyone wants to take a picture of it.
Are you looking for the registration info, Jenna?
Oh yeah, if you want to put that in the chat too.
It's in the chat.
Oh, you're awesome. Okay, well, I will not share my, if I could figure out where the.
Oh, you're not going to share it?
Oh, she put it in the chat, so it has all
Okay.
that information, the
Okay.
link to register. And that also includes a 15% off discount code to the MSAR. So those that are looking to start looking at the medical school profiles and the different features that Kate talked about, you can use that from registering to get some money off for the MSAR subscription. So that's pretty exciting.
Just a note about the recorded webinars link that I put in the chat. That is all of our most up-to-date webinars. So if you're looking for information about registering for the MCAT exam, our AMCAS webinar will be there as well as soon as we finish that on the 17th, I believe is the date. If you're looking for information about preview for this cycle or the application for MCAS in general, fee assistance, all of our most recent webinars for pre-meds are at that link. We also just completed a webinar with a medical learning specialist. So those of you who are preparing to take exams like the MCAT can take a look at that for more information on how to prepare for such a long exam. We have, I think, at least one more question in the chat, so I'll jump into that. Are there any programs or opportunities for college graduates, gap year individuals, and or college juniors and college seniors for summer or during the regular year that you know of and can share? So outside of SHPEP, I guess, would be the question.
Yeah, take that one if that's okay. Or Kate, did you want to take? Yeah, okay. So I talked about earlier the summer enrichment opportunities in addition to SHPP. So that was, the link was services.amc.org/summer programs. I think that's in the chat as well. So not only can you use that, but if you don't see anything on there that you're interested in, I recommend personally, I always tell people this, call your local hospital, see if you can volunteer, be a medical scribe. You can always put your foot in the door, even if you don't see the offering on a web page somewhere or on social media, and make your own opportunity. Because one thing that I think is really important is if you are gonna do a gap year, there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone has different ways that they get into medical school in different pathways. Just make sure you can show in your application once you are ready to apply that you stay consistent with finding opportunities to stay in the medical field. Because you want to show that you're always working on it, even if you did need that 1 year or 2 years, however long you take to apply. You want to always show that you're being active in it and that your passion is still there and that you're continuing to grow yourself, even if you're not applying yet. So I would just keep that in mind if you are planning to take a gap year. Yeah, just look around locally and also use our summer programs website, and you should be able to find something for those in between times.
All right. Do we have any other questions that we can help you answer? I believe that there's a contact slide at the end of our presentation. Jenna, if you wanted to
Let's see
back
that.
up.
Yeah.
We have our websites one, the contact one is not in here, but I can elaborate on it. So if you have a question about a specific service, for example, let's say you have an MCAT question, you can go to the MCAT page on the website, and there will be a link to a contact form. We have that for all the different services, but they all do connect back to our one support center called the AMC Support Center. But if you do it that way you can make sure it's in the queue for whatever service you have a question about. So I recommend using the contact form, or we do have different numbers for our different services to connect you to an AMC Support Center representative. So if you do have a question, I would go to the home pages of those services or programs and either call the number or submit for the contact form. And we also have some email addresses on the website as well that you can use to email us directly if you have any questions.
And I just put the link to our kind of a directory of contact services in the chat as well.
Yes. Yeah. So that was really important, is how do you connect and reach people if you want to talk to you guys or someone from AAMC. So that would be just, it's important to have that too. Is that in the chat too?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm sorry, my Wi-Fi is unstable, so I didn't hear your response to my Einstein story. But
there's no response, Al. They're talking about personal statements, and I think that's great.
Yeah. No, I just want to encourage students to apply to schools where they don't have as much financial burden. I just think it's important.
Okay, that's Dr. Brooks. He's the president of, I don't know if you guys can see him, but he's the president of PMF, and he went to Albert Einstein, but way before the big $1 billion drop.
Yeah,
wow.
I was taught
So
by the doctor's wife who gave the money. I was taught by her.
Okay. Okay. Any more questions? Does anybody have anything else to ask these wonderful speakers?
I saw that someone said they wanted to see this again.
Right, that's the one. That's the one.
So, yeah, I would take I'd take a picture of it.
Okay, and I'm gonna take a picture of it too.
I can flip to the next one too, so everyone get a picture of the upcoming event
just hold on.
as well. Oh yeah, no, take your time.
So everybody can get it. Okay, and
everyone good with this one?
Everybody got that one or not? Did you get a good picture of it? Okay, I have one.
Okay, I'll go ahead and click enter. And this is the 2 events, so the MCAS presentation, which I will be presenting on that. So if you want to see my face again, please join.
Okay.
And then the virtual fair, which I will be on there as well for a couple hours on that Thursday.
And that's where you sign up, I guess, to register, right? I see it there. Okay.
Yep, down here at the bottom right here. And Naya did put it in the chat as well. And also she put the registration link for this in the chat as well too.
If you send us these 2 screens, we will put it up on our website front and center so that it'll be easy to find versus having to go through a lot. Because the easier it is, yeah, you know what I'm saying. Okay, great.
Sounds good.
Okay, and anything else like that, if you have something that is coming up that will benefit all of the students, if you just got one screenshot, we can send that, post that, or even send it out to them, because we have a way to roll it out to everybody.
I would say while we're still on here, and I'm just gonna pull it up and share it real quick, it'll be easier. So one of my favorite websites or pages on our website is the pre-med resources page, which I am a little biased because I did build it, so I'm a little biased here. But let me show something. Let me
Okay.
show, there we go. Here it is. Okay, so this is our pre-med resources hub.
yeah.
And what I love about this is it's kind of like a web page that structures the presentation we just gave. So there's different categories here, and you can go through in a suggested timeline, because like we said, everyone has different pathways, and find information on all the things that we talked about today, as well as resources. And the webinars page that Naya linked is also on here as well as upcoming webinars. And what I do love is here on the right side, you can go to popular pre-med resources and click, so click here. This has a bunch of different resources that I think are we have many great resources, but these are some of my favorites that are on this page that you can look through. And then also there's the cheat sheet. So I think this is an advanced version of the slide we were just showing. So I think I sent this to you, but just in case I didn't, I think this would be great to have on your site. It has links to everything that we think was important in all the different sections listed on the pre-med resources page that you can go to help you along your journey.
Okay. All right.
So
I'm not sure if you sent that to us, but if not, you can just email it and I'll put it up.
Yes, I'll put it in the chat right now too, just so everyone can look at it.
Okay, that'd be great. All right.
Yes, let me stop sharing. That's the right one. Let me know if you see this. I think does everyone see that?
Yep.
Oh, perfect. Yep. So there it is if you want to use that as well. And then I'll put in the pre-med resources page too.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh, great. Okay. Does anybody have any more questions? Or are there any other questions in the chat that they have not addressed, or you want to expand on, or anything else that anyone would like to know about?
Yeah, I think we've addressed everything in the chat. If not,
Okay.
please feel free to drop us a ping.
Okay. All right. So are we good? Everybody's all informed, and now AAMC has prepared you. So these lovely ladies, what time is it back there? Oh, it's about 2:30 or something, 2:15. Yeah, you guys are ready to go and shop or have a great lunch, late lunch. Listen, thank you so much. As usual, you guys present such wonderful information. We love the AAMC. They've always been so supportive. There's material for all of you, all of the DOB students, to just go on our website that is from AAMC, even from previous times, that is still applicable. So thank you, all of you, Jenna, Kate, and Nia. Thank you for joining us and presenting, and hope to see you next year. Okay.
Yes, thank you for having us, and happy to present again. Just let us know, and thank you everybody for your questions.
Yes, we will. Okay.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Great presentation.
Great presentation. So I hope that was helpful to everyone, and it's just it's the go-to place. It's the go-to organization. And just keep in mind that the workshop that's following is Princeton Review. So Princeton Review ties into AAMC because they're the ones that help prepare you, whether it's for the SAT or the MCAT. And probably what they're going to do is the MCAT first, because everyone needs to know something about the MCAT and preparing, and how do you prepare, like with Princeton Review. And then those of you who are who don't need to know about SAT, maybe you can take a little break if you want to. Okay. So we're running early, I think. The next workshop is not supposed to start until 11:35. So maybe this is the perfect time for everybody to take a break. What do you think? Okay. Anybody disagree with that? Okay, so why don't we come back? Carolyn, what do you think? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Would that
I
be,
think it's
would
the
this be a
perfect time
perfect
for a
time?
break. Yes.
And then what time, Carolyn and
Um,
Julie? What time should they come back at?
Let's come back at 11:30.
Okay, everybody back at 11:30, because we have to admit all you guys, and it's a little technical stuff that they have to do. Okay, so take a little break and thank you. Hi, Sam. Okay, is everybody ready? Welcome back. We are on time and moving fairly quickly here. So hope everybody had a nice little break. And our next workshop and speaker is with Princeton Review. And many of you have heard of Princeton Review as well as Kaplan, full disclosure here, okay?
Definitely.
Right, that prepare students for their journey to medical school through the testing process. And we have a wonderful partner with Princeton Review for years, and it's been really, really valuable and helpful to many students. So we thought that in addition to the AAMC, who prepares overall you to become doctors, whether you're in high school, college, post-bacc, gap, whatever stage you are, Princeton Review focuses on the testing part, okay, and making sure that you have all the tools and the opportunities to prepare, and they offer some really good little discounts. So
Yes.
we've invited Tiffany Slidey, who has worked with us for many years. Unfortunately, her new laptop did not arrive, so she does not have, you can't see her, but you will be able to see her presentation. So if everybody is in, Carolyn and Julie, we are all good to go? Everybody is back?
Yes.
Okay, then I would like to introduce Miss Tiffany Sladek, who you will see just a black screen, and then she will go into her presentation. Tiffany, welcome to 2024 Doctors on Board.
Thank you, Stefan. I appreciate the introduction. I hope everyone can hear me okay. I am going to share my slide deck with y'all, so hopefully you can see it, and then I'm going to go into my slideshow mode. And I won't be able to see the chat, but Carolyn's going to be on here with me to talk me through any chat that comes up. Hopefully everybody can see my getting into medical school slide, which is where we're going to start. Yes, thank you, Rosemary, for nodding yes. I can see you in the screen. I appreciate that. So I'll give you all a little bit of background about myself and what we're going to talk about here today before I get started, so you kind of know what to expect.
Tiffany, just a second. Tiffany,
yeah.
just before
Yeah.
you start, you guys, this is really, really helpful information. She's wonderful about helping you to prepare not only for your SAT, ACT, which you'll hear later on, but this part about the MCAT will really help you, even if you're in high school, because you will have information about
Absolutely.
it before in advance.
Yeah.
So she'll navigate you guys through this, but please make sure you take advantage and listen to all of the good resources that she has. Okay, just wanted to say that. Thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. So as Salpana said, I work with high school students and graduate students. Medical field is my number one group for the grad students that I work with, but I also work with law students and business students and students going into pre-PA programs and nursing programs. So I run the gamut. So I am here to really be a resource for you all today. Our goal at the Princeton Review, as well as the goal for Stefana and Doctors on Board program, is to be a resource to help you get to the dream school, right? You're going to start with your dream college, and then you're going to go on to your dream medical school. And that's really my goal today. So for those of you who are in high school, please stay on the call. We will talk about high school stuff after we talk about the MCAT. But if you are pre-med, the MCAT is in your future, right? So it's good for you to hear about it now, so that way there's no surprises. I want you to be as prepared as possible when you start college, right? So that you kind of know what classes you need to be taking, so that you're ready to take the MCAT when the time comes. You'll know what to expect, what's on the MCAT. And then, of course, as Stefana mentioned, the Princeton Review does help students with preparation for the tests for both the SAT, the ACT, the MCAT, the GRE, if you end up going into a different type of medical field beyond pre-med, and that might be a test that you'd have to do instead. So all that being said, I hope you bear with me. I hope a lot of this isn't repetitive, because I know you just heard from the AMC, who is the accrediting body for medical schools and who is in charge of the MCAT and all those things. So they are like a fantastic resource to get the information straight from them. So I'll try to move more quickly through the pieces that maybe they covered and spend some time on the MCAT. So that being said, I'm super excited. Thank you all for being here with me. So we're going to start with a little bit about the med admissions landscape, super short because you did hear from AMC already. Then we'll talk about the MCAT and how it plays into the med admissions process. And then I'll talk a little bit about your recommended timeline. I know AMC probably talked about that too, but I'll speak to you more from a local perspective. I am here in the Bay Area, which I imagine a lot of you on the call are hopefully from the Bay Area or California, the West Coast. So I'm coming at you from Berkeley. So I'll speak kind of about what we do here in the Bay Area. So bear with me. We're going to get started. Don't hesitate to ask questions in the chat. They are going to be monitoring and helping me answer your questions. If I don't know the answer to your question, I promise you I will seek out the answer and I will follow up with you and get it for you, right? You're in really good hands with everybody that's on this call, as well as that doctor's on board to get answers to all your questions so that you're totally prepared, right? My goal is your success at the end of the day. And I'm going to need you all to take care of me when the time comes for me to get a doctor. So I'm investing in myself as I'm investing in you, right? Okay, let's get started. So let's talk briefly about the med admissions landscape. So we know that with all things medical field, it can be competitive. There are 154 MD programs, 38 DO programs in the United States. This changes over time, of course, and you're in the right place to make sure you get all that really up-to-date information. But the spots are limited, right, for all of those programs. So our goal today is to get you as prepared as possible so that you can ensure you grab one of those limited spots, right? So let's talk a little bit about preliminary screening. So I know that with the high school landscape, a lot of things have changed and they've moved away from testing being a requirement at every school, but the MCAT is still a requirement for medical school. It will not be going away anytime soon. So it's important that we make that part of our process when we're getting ready and thinking about what medical schools we might be interested in, because they will take a look at their preliminary screening off students' GPAs and their MCAT scores. So it's important that you are as mindful about preparing and taking your MCAT as you are about getting that great GPA on a regular basis, right? The MCAT is going to be one of the more important tests that you'll probably take in your time, but I promise you it can be prepared for. It can be mastered. It is simply a test like every other thing, and you just have to approach it a little bit differently, right? So let's talk about MCAT applicants into medical school and matriculation measurements, right? So I just wanted to share with some data with you from 2022, 2023 programs. And this is from the AMC, so they may have talked about this already. But it's important to take a note that the applicants here, you're looking at total MCAT score for students that applied, total GPA average for students that applied, right? So you're looking at 55,000 students applied that have these metrics. And then if you look to the right, the students that actually matriculated, which means they got into a medical school program, you'll notice that their average MCAT score is a little bit higher. Their average GPA was a little bit higher, and about half, a little less than half of them actually get into medical school. So it's super important that you are mindful of these things as you get started with your college adventure, right? I love that you are all here now. This is one of the first steps, right? Getting the resource, getting the information, understanding what you need to do so that you are prepared and there's no surprises, right? If we are prepared, we can do anything. Okay. So this is to kind of give you a little example of what to expect as far as GPA, what you should be shooting for, and what kind of MCAT score matriculated students. And this changes. So when you are ready to apply, so I know some of you on the call, you might be in high school right now. Some of you might be freshmen or sophomores in college. Some of you might actually already be in post-bac programs and are getting ready to actually do the application this year. So it's important that you take a look at the information from the previous cycle, because it does change every year, and you can easily go to the AMC's website and track this information from the previous year, just like you can when you're getting ready to apply to college. All right, so all that being said, let's talk about the MCAT and what is actually on the test, right? I'm guessing you guys are all dying to know. So the MCAT is short for the Medical College Admissions Test. It is administered by the AMC, as they mentioned. They are in charge of accrediting all of the medical school programs. They are in charge of making sure that this test is as up to date as they need it to be, making any changes to it, making sure that everybody has the same information about it. So they are a great resource. And as of now, every school in the US and Canada is requiring the MCAT. So just know that if medical school is your path, which I hope it is for everybody, the MCAT will be part of that path, and don't be scared of it. I know that you hear a lot about it and it sounds really scary because it's long and it covers a lot of topics. But I promise you it can be prepared for. You just want to make sure that you're ready. So let's talk about the prerequisites. So the prereqs are the classes that are recommended that you have completed prior to sitting for your MCAT, right? So I'm just giving you an example right here. And again, this information is available on the AMC's website as well. This is what's recommended before you actually sit for the MCAT. At least a year of biology, at least a year of physics, at least a year of GChem, which is also general chemistry for those of you who don't know the shorthand yet, and then a year of OChem, which is organic chemistry. Also recommended are semesters of biochemistry, psychology, and sociology. So you'll notice when we get into actually talking about what's on the MCAT, you're going to see some acronyms, and I'll tell you a little bit about what they mean. But the reason these things are recommended is because the bulk of what you need to know as your base on the MCAT comes from these courses, right? A lot of the MCAT strategy is practicing with it, reading the passages, but you want to make sure that you're comfortable with the actual base content, or that you give yourself time, right? So a lot of students will enter post-bac programs because they realize that they need to beef up on their sciences, right? They didn't feel like they got that when they were in their undergrads, or they decided to change majors and that kind of threw them back a little bit. So they're taking that extra time in a post-bac program to really beef up those other things. So if post-bac, you're not sure, that's a really good pathway if you need to beef up on these science type of things before you sit for the MCAT. Because a lot of times with post-bac programs, they will have this stuff built in, like they'll have MCAT prep and preparation for the test built into their program. So it can be really helpful in that way as well. All right, so let's talk about the sections that you're going to see on the MCAT. So the first one is Chemical and Physical Foundations, Biological Systems. The second one is Critical Analysis and Reasoning, which a lot of people refer to as CARS. So if you ever hear people talking about, oh, the CARS section on the MCAT is so difficult, they're referring to critical analysis and reasoning, which is really reading comprehension. So some of the things that you could start doing now if you are in high school, or you are a freshman or a sophomore or a third year in college, reading medical journals and getting comfortable with medical language and content will be immensely helpful to you when you get to this CAR section, because that's really what it is. It's being able to read information, extrapolate what you need from it, and answer questions about it. So that's kind of the CAR section. Then you get into Biological and Biochemical Foundations of Living Systems, which is going to be your biology, biochem, one of the largest sections that you'll see on the test. If you take a Princeton Review class in preparation for the MCAT, or if you took a class with Kaplan or Blueprint, one of the largest components of any class is going to be spent on the biology and biochemical components. So just know, like, of our 32 classes that we do, 9 of them are around this section, right? So it's a pretty big deal, pretty important to feel comfortable with that content by the time you get to take the test. And then the last section is Psychological, Social, Biobehaviors. So this is also known as Psych-Soc. So if you hear that shorthand when people are talking about the MCAT, they'll refer to the Psych-Soc sections. So this is going to be more around how you communicate with your patients, how you work with people from different backgrounds, how you understand and can empathize with where they're coming from in their social background, in psychological issues, really looking at the foundations of behavior of different people. And making sure that you understand as a physician, right, what that means to work with different kinds of people and advocate for different groups of people, and make sure that when you are working in a different field that you really can understand and work well with all different kinds of people. All right. So scientific reasoning and inquiry is also kind of a sub area that there's not exactly classes around this, but it's something that the MCAT also tests you on, right? So knowledge of scientific concepts and principles, which are things that you're going to get from those classes that you're going to take, right? Mentioned to you that year of biology, year of GChem, physics, OChem, that's stuff that you're going to gain out of those classes. Scientific reasoning and problem solving is also something important that the MCAT will test you on. And that's built into the entire test. All the different kinds of questions that you're going to see, that's content that you want to be comfortable with, right? And then you're looking at reasoning about the design and execution of research. I know that you will have some speakers coming on after me who are going to talk to you about the importance of research and getting comfortable with content that you're going to see through different research programs. That's also something that they want you to feel comfortable and confident with on this test and through the actual medical school application in totality. And then you're also looking at database and statistical reasoning skills. So this is going to be math, right? Quantitative reasoning. Can you look at a chart and extrapolate the data from it and being able to advise somebody off of the data that you see, right? Are you comfortable looking at those kinds of things? These are all different components. It might not be designated under a certain section of the test, but they are built into all of the different questions that you'll see and all of the different sections. So making sure, right, know what you need to know so that you can be ready to go. That's kind of the best way to look at it. So making sure that you guys understand everything that's going to be on there. All right. So let's talk about the score range. So you're looking at a 528 overall. So you're going to get a score for each of the different sections between 118 and 132. And then you're going to get an average out of that composite score at the end, right? So 528 would be a perfect score. 515 is considered a good score, right? So getting a 528 is really difficult, but not impossible. People do it. We've had people that work for us as instructors for our courses who got perfect scores on the MCAT. So it can be done by all means, but you don't have to get that score in order to get into a really good medical school program, right? We showed you what the average mean was earlier with that 511 to 515. That's going to get you into a good program if you also have a strong GPA, right? So just kind of showing what the scoring range is here. So the chemical and physical foundations of biological systems, 118 to 132. The CARS, critical analysis and reasoning, again, 118 to 132. Biological and biochemical foundations, again, 118 to 132. And then the psycho section, 118 to 132. So you're looking between a 472 and a 528, which is going to be your scoring range. And again, if you all want to take a screenshot of this, you can, but you can also access this information on the Princeton Review's website, on AMC website. It's not a secret, it's out there for you. I'm also going to send this slide deck to everybody that's attending today so that you'll have it. Hopefully no questions so far. So that's kind of a bit about the MCAT. So I will tell you, I get a lot of questions around like, how much time should I spend preparing for an MCAT? Most students will spend around 3 months preparing for the MCAT, along with doing the other things that they need to be doing for their application cycle, right? So you might still be in school, so you might have classes. You might be preparing your application, so you want to make sure you're giving time for your shadowing, your clinicals, getting your personal statement ready, and prepping for any secondaries, or all those kinds of things will go into the same timeline. So giving yourself about 3 months is pretty average for an MCAT student. Our classes, if you decided to take a course around it, are built out around that 3 months. So you'll take it a couple days a week for a few hours. In between the class time and the actual sitting of the test, you'll have practice exams. So that's one of the best ways that you can prepare yourself, is to actually sit yourself down for that 8 hours and go through a full-length practice test. I will send everybody a link to a free full-length practice test that you can do at any time that suits you when you get there, because that's really the best first step, right? Like, you don't know what you don't know until you actually try the test, and doing it in a space where there's no harm, right? It's just for you to see, is really helpful, because it'll actually give you a score report at the end of the practice test that'll show you what you did well, what you need to work on. It'll give you a breakout for each of the questions and actually explain to you why the correct answer is the correct answer. So that's a really good starting point. Like, if you're wondering, oh my gosh, I don't even know what I need to do yet, taking a practice test one Sunday or one Saturday. It's computer based, so you do it at home. Or you could, like a lot of you, if you're in clubs at school, we partner with a lot of clubs and do them, but I could go on and on about this, but that's a really good place for you to start with, so that you can kind of see what you're looking at, and that'll help you really figure out what your next steps would be. And not every student takes a class. Some students like to do it on their own, right? They just want to order some books, they want to get a self-paced program, or maybe you want to just work on it together, and that's okay too, right? The best way is the way that works for you to get you that score that you want, to get you into that medical school program that you want, to eventually get you into a residency and for you to become a doctor, right? So do it however works best for you. Okay, I actually need to look at the clock. Okay, good. I have time. All right, so let's talk about the timeline. I'm sure AMC talked a little bit about this as well during their presentation, but I'm going to reiterate it and I'll try to go through it a little bit quickly. So we like to refer to it as class. These are all the pieces of the puzzle that are going to go together in your timeline, right? So the MCAT is just one piece of it. You also need to make sure that you're getting your clinicals, leadership opportunities, service, academic, and social. I'm going to show you a little example of each of those buckets, right? So if you're writing this down, don't forget, I'm going to send it to you, so don't panic. But I want to tell you a little bit about what each of those buckets means, right? So when you're applying to medical school, you're going to be putting your holistic person out there, right? Like they want to see all of you. If they're interviewing Tiffany, they want to know all of the things that made Tiffany passionate about medicine and what her path was to getting there, right? Everybody's path will be unique. So these different sections of class are places that you will show your passion for medicine, and not everybody's will be the same, right? So clinicals, this is where you're going to learn about your likes and dislikes, your strengths, your weaknesses in the medicine field, right? What you want to do, what path you want to take. So these are opportunities for you to get exposed to these different things, whether it's through shadowing, 2 to 5 specialty areas where you can actually reach out to a physician that maybe you meet while you're at Doctors on Board. That's they're in a field that you're interested, and you reach out to them later and say, "Hi, Dr. Bello, I am really interested in your field of study. Is there an opportunity for me to shadow you or do some work with you?" Right. So these are things that you're going to do over the course of your undergraduate program, right? So other things you could do are international mission trips. If you belong to student clubs at your campuses, and I'll use Berkeley because that's my home base school, they have a group called Global Medical Brigades on their campus. So they actually arrange opportunities for students in that club to go and do service in the community on an international basis, right? Or there's groups that will go and do things right down the street from you. So it doesn't have to be you getting on a plane and going somewhere. It can be you going and helping out in a neighborhood that needs extra help for doing a blood drive or things like that, right? So mission trips where you can actually speak to the passion you have about medicine, attaining certifications, right? Like if you are interested in certain fields, there's different certifications that you can do, like EMT is listed down here. Those are great ways for you to showcase what you're interested in medicine. And getting the clinical experience is about you finding out who you are and where you're going to fit in when you go to medical school, right? The idea is that you understand that about people, that they're not just patients, they're people too. And you discover that through doing your clinicals, right? All right. And then let's talk about leadership. So leadership can be different things. Most often students will think like, oh, well, I need to be the leader of my club. I need to be the president of my club. And at Berkeley, which again is my home school, there are a lot of clubs and a lot of leaders of those clubs, which is great, right? Giving you opportunities to really showcase that. But you could lead through a church group. You could lead through your work. You could lead through volunteer activities. You could lead through, working on your campus. So leadership is about you showcasing on your medical school application what it means to you to think something's important enough that you want to teach other people about it, right? That's what being a leader is all about. And there's lots of different areas that you can show that. And you want to make sure that you highlight those things when you do your actual medical school application, and finding things that are meaningful to you, right? But you can lead where you can. It can be in lots of different ways. And then let's talk about academics. So this is our A in class. Academics is really important, right? We talked about the GPA being a baseline that the medical schools will be looking at. So finding opportunities through your academics, like scientific research opportunities, TA or tutoring, right? If you can work with your instructors on your campus, whether it's a big school or a small school, to also lead and volunteer with your peers, right? Like those are really great things that help you stand out as a student and can be meaningful in loads of different ways. It doesn't have to be, oh, I was a straight A student, and so I was, a TA for my professor. Maybe that wasn't your path, and medical schools appreciate that when they're looking at your application. So just make sure that you have different ways to highlight your academics, right? Any extra academic opportunities. If you have a chance to take a more rigorous course, and this applies to my high schoolers too, do it. If you think it's going to be hard, that's okay. Medical school is not easy. So better to start preparing yourself now, right? With the rigor of extra academic opportunities. If that's taking classes that maybe aren't, up your alley, but try them, because it really shows, even if you learn a hard lesson, that you can share that when you get to your medical school application. All right. And then our last, second to last, let's talk about service. I just want to make sure I leave plenty of time to talk about my high school stuff. Service. All right. So volunteering, joining community organizations, doing something to improve your community, right? At the end of the day, most people get into the medical field because they like helping other people. So that's something that's really important to showcase through your application when you apply to medical school, and something that will come up on the MCAT. They will ask you about these kinds of things in the psych, soc, and car sections where you're going to be reading about these types of things, right? So making sure that you're out there and you're doing things that are meaningful to you and your community are going to be really important. I think you're taking a great first step today. Coming to the Doctors on Board Summit and learning this type of information will lead you to different opportunities to maybe come back in the future and be a speaker, volunteer, and give your service back to what Salfana works on, because she has a lot of graduates from this program that come back and still tell us what they're doing and what they're working on now. So really good first step that you all are doing this today. All right, let's talk about the last S, which is social. So don't feel like I'm going to go to medical school, so I need to be completely focused on this path, and I'm not going to enjoy the other things that go along with this process. That's where the social comes in. Making connections when you're in university, whatever that looks like for you. If it's joining a club, if it's volunteering, making connections with other students that are interested in the same things you are will really help you stay on track of what you're interested in. And then look for diversity of experiences, right? And we all benefit when we learn from different people and their different experiences. And that goes, a lot into becoming a physician, whatever kind of actual doctor you become. Understanding people's different experiences is critical to that, right? And critical to being happy in your life, I really think. And then being a representative. That just means, standing up for what you believe in, helping other people learn about that, and whatever that is in the medical field, helping them understand the importance of that, right? So being a good representative for humankind, for the work that you want to do and for the kind of person that you are, all of that comes into your application when you sit down to write it, right? Okay, so I just want to show the actual kind of timeline that we recommend for students. And I'm going to pull it all up at one time in case you all want to take a picture of it. But then I'll talk through each of the boxes. So for those of you who are in high school, this applies to you as well. When you get to college, this will be a really good path. And the fact that you're getting this now before you've actually even got there will really help you stay on track and not feel like you're, struggling at the end of the day to get everything ready. So end of sophomore year is usually when you would start thinking about your MCAT prep. Not that you need to do it yet, but by the time you're done with your second year of college, you should have had all of those courses that we talked about, right? Like the year of physics, the OChem, the GChem, the biology. So then October of your third year is when the MCAT registration will open for the first half of the year. So I'm sure you heard on the AMC's call, they probably talked about the MCAT opens in 2 different cycles over the course of the year usually, so that students can register for when they actually want to sit and take the test, but it'll open at 2 different times. So first half of the year will open in October. And so if you're thinking about taking the test any time between January and June, you'd be looking at those dates. And then November to January, you can start thinking about your personal statements. Start asking and thinking about who you're going to ask for your letters of rec and what that's going to look like, and kind of starting to put those pieces together. And then February, the second half of the year, MCAT will open. So if you're thinking you want to take the test over the summer or in the beginning of the fall, because you're going to apply the next cycle, or you can do a postgrad or something like that, your timing's that way, that's when you would be looking at doing that. And then you get into March, which is a lot of time that students will start to think about preparing for their MCAT. Really common time is spring of your third year, somewhere in there. March, April, May, you take the test over the summer. Then you're starting to put your personal statement together, activities and experiences, getting all of that done, right? So then by May, You're ready to submit your primary application when the application cycle opens. You've done your MCAT, you've got everything ready, you can turn that in on time, you've got everything done so that you're ready for the process to flow from there. So it's kind of typical. Third year is usually when most students will do it. If your timeline's different, that's okay. If you're going to take a gap year, all of these things might happen during your gap year. If you're going to take a post-bac program, all of these things will happen during your post-bac program, right? I think that they were speaking on the AMC call about if you are going to take a gap year, just make sure that you're still on track and that you're still participating in all of those pieces of the puzzle, right? So that you're still showing those schools that that's something that you're really interested in and that you took the gap year for a meaningful purpose, right? You didn't just say, hey, I needed a break, which is okay. Some people do. But while you're getting that break, you want to make sure that you're staying on track with the entire process, right? Okay. So in the effort of time, now I'm going to send this free tool to all of you, but I want to show you a little bit what it looks like. So this is our med school management tool, and it's a really great way to start keeping track of all of your experiences, your clinicals, your GPA, who you're going to ask to write your letters of rec, kind of all of these things that are going to go into your application when you actually apply to medical school. You can start kind of putting your resume together as a freshman in college. I'm going to send this to everybody and it's free. You will be able to utilize it for free. If you decided that you wanted to go the extra level and do other stuff with it, you can. But it's really just meant to kind of be, I think a journal is the best way I describe it. It's meant for you to use as you go along so that by the time you are actually applying to medical school, you haven't forgotten, right? All of those really important things that happened to you over the course of those 3 or 4 years. So there's places where you can put in your academics, right? You can talk about research that you've done, and you just list it out like a little journal, and it's all done on an app on your computer. There's a section where you can actually put in goals for yourself, and it will start ticking them down, right? So if you know that you need, 50 to 100 hours of a certain thing, you can start putting them in, and it'll start to keep track of how many hours you've done so that you can make sure you're on track to get that 100. It can put in different information about shadowing, where it was, who it was with, whether or not it was paid, clinical opportunities, who it was with, all that good stuff. And it just holds it for you so that when you get ready to actually submit your application, you have everything there and it's laid out in the same format that the actual MCAT application will be. So it's a really cool free tool that I will send to everybody via email, along with my contact information and links to that free practice test that I mentioned for you. So that everyone who is in college already can start utilizing this if you want. By all means, you can keep track of this stuff on your own. Like you don't have to use this system, but it just really is helpful to have it all laid out in there for you so you don't forget anything when the time comes to submit your application. And this is just showing you a screenshot of kind of what it looks like as you put the little details in. And you can put in your social, what you worked on, right? So this person talked about that they were interested in music, right? So we talked a little bit about making sure that you're doing other things to enrich your life and make you a well-rounded person. This person did some drumming, they played the piano, they did guitar, they talk about doing running and poetry and training for half marathons and taking up sailing, right? So that you can really say, hey, I'm a really well-rounded applicant. I'm going to bring all these really great things to your program beyond, my efforts to become a medical student. And that's it for the MCAT section. I just like to leave you with this slide because it is our mission for the Princeton Review to help students across the board. So obviously the test is our primary thing that we do, but we also help students with grades, applications for medical school. If you want, those resources are all available on the Princeton Review's website. Like I said, there's no wrong way or right way to prepare or study or put all these pieces together. There's just your way, right? So just make sure that you find what works best for you and go with that. It will be different, I'm sure, for everybody. But that's my section for my undergrad students. Any questions in here that I could answer for you all now before we jump into the high school component? You can always stay on and talk about high school too, but I'd love to answer any questions that I can.
Okay, Tiffany, I'll read some from the chat.
Sure, yeah.
How many years do we need for biochemistry?
So it's recommended 1 year for biology and biochemistry, at least a semester. But it'll be part of your program. They'll tell you, like, it may be more than that based on whatever your major is, but the recommendation is a year. to at least a semester before you are trying to sit for the MCAT.
Okay, and
Like I said, it's a big chunk of the test.
the next one is from Rachel. Is it discouraged or frowned upon for students to take the MCAT if they've only had one semester of physics and not a full year?
No, it's not discouraged or frowned upon, but it may be more difficult for you, right? Like I said, I'm trying to set you up for success. You will probably have things that you did not potentially cover. And that may make the test feel more stressful and difficult for you. But
Okay.
there's no like hard and fast rule. You must have done this. This is just recommendation.
There's a question from Dejanique. Does having a nonprofit count? Not really sure what that question is.
I'm guessing you mean, are you a leader and created your own nonprofit, or are you meaning I did some volunteering for a nonprofit?
Exactly. Like I started my own nonprofit.
100% that counts. Absolutely. That falls into a lot of different buckets, from being a leader, right, to founding something, to getting your hours, all of that good stuff. You would want to make sure that your nonprofit meets all the criteria, I would imagine, for it to actually be pulled into like the clinical and the shadowing hours and things like that. I would double check on that. But as far as like from a leader standpoint, absolutely. Really great opportunity for you to also talk about why you did that, right? Why did you start your nonprofit? Will say a lot about you in your actual application. So great job.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification.
Of course.
That's all I see on my side. Stalfina, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. Tiffany, did you go over the difference between the gaps, the students? Some students are gap year students, right? They're not into a program, right? Did you go clearly over that into how that transition, if they want to go back? Okay.
Totally.
Right.
I can talk a little bit more about that because it will be relevant to high schoolers
it's really
as well.
important to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So gap year students, a lot of times decided that they needed that for lots of different reasons, right? It could be that you need to work. It could be that you had a life thing come up. It could be that you felt like you needed to work on something a little bit more, or it just was really difficult for you to do all of that while you were in school, which is okay. Gap year students take that gap year and do their MCAT prep. They get their application ready. They work, they do their clinicals, they might have shadowing they needed to get done. So a lot of students will take the gap year and do that, and that's okay. But like I said, you want to make sure that you're still doing meaningful steps towards your actual medical school application so that you can explain the gap year in your process, right? Now, post-bac students, that's different. They're joining a special post-bac program that's going to help them fill a gap that they didn't get in their undergrad. Whether that's they switched majors at a time where they could not then cover all the science that they needed, or they just felt like they needed to do some more actual studying and courses before they could submit their application. Those students will oftentimes select a post-bac program to help with those pieces. And a lot of times post-bac programs will have MCAT prep built into them, which is great. So double whammy. So two different ways to kind of spend that little extra time in two different avenues if you need to. Does that help, Stalfina?
Yes.
Okay.
I have another question that another student asked me. The difference between a lot of students say that they want to shadow. And I have spoken with a number of medical school admissions people, the doctors and the deans, and what they consider is two things. Shadowing is passive. So when they rate it on a scale, shadowing is passive. But engaging in an activity with whether it's a medical center or an organization that focus like the PMF and Doctors on Board, where they're actually doing something, they rank that differently. And that shadowing is very passive because you're just going in and watching versus you're creating a product and doing something. Please speak to that because there's a lot of confusion about shadowing now, and especially because of all the HIPAA laws and so forth, what you can actually do if you're not in an internship.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that you kind of hit it on the head. Like I would
Okay.
say that the shadowing could be a first step. It's just meant for you to
Yes.
discover, hey, this is a thing that I actually really like. Now I'm going to go and seek an actual opportunity to get my hands on to do this, to actually be in an internship or a program or actually get a paid clinical hours. Like I think that's what Stelfon is getting at, is like the
Mhm.
shadowing should be the precursor to
Yeah.
the actual doing of the activity, if that helps.
Yeah, correct. Because
It's not in
when
lieu of, it's in addition
yeah,
to.
right, right. And how they rank it, that's what I'm
Yes.
trying to get at, is how they
Yeah.
rank it.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. No, that's
and,
great to hear.
yeah, and some of the applications for the scholarships, like NMF and some of these scholarships around the country,
Mhm.
the kid that did shadowing and the versus the kid that did a research project or actually work like Ms. Johnson mentioned about a nonprofit organization or
Mhm.
any organization and actually did something and had a product that came out of
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
That went like it's like 5 and then 100 if you had a
Yeah.
scale.
Sure.
It's that big of a difference.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
understand how the scale, when you're thinking about applying for medical school, the whole question of shadowing
Mhm.
versus actually doing something that has a product or an outcome to it. Okay, that makes a
Yeah.
difference. I hope that helps everybody to clarify the importance of shadowing, because there's also HIPAA laws with all of the shadowing stuff
Yes.
too. Yes.
Yes, very
Okay.
true. No, that's
Okay.
great. Thank you, Stefana. I just learned
Okay.
something helpful.
Okay.
So thank you.
Okay.
Wonderful. Well, if everyone's ready, I'm only leaving 30 minutes to talk, oh, less than 30 minutes now to talk about our college component.
Okay.
Carolyn, Stefana, you think I'm good to move on
You're
to
good. Go right
talking
ahead unless somebody has
talking
a
to our high
question.
schoolers?
Okay, that's fine. And even if you have a question that's about that, put it in the chat. We'll try to address it. Okay.
Absolutely. All right.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
now I'm going to switch gears and we're going to go back a little bit to high school. So we just talked about our college experience. Let's walk a little bit backwards for those of you who are still in high school and are thinking about the pre-med path, right? And you are hopefully sophomores, juniors, freshmen in high school. This is going to be for you. So I want to talk a little bit about the truths and misconceptions first about applications and testing, because I know there's a lot of information out there. I want to tell you all what I know for sure from my perspective. And I'll talk a little bit about the similarities and differences between the new digital SAT versus the ACT. So you all might have heard that the SAT turned into a digital test. So it's now done on a computer, which is different than how it was before on a paper and pencil bubble sheet. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. And then I'll wrap with talking about the must-haves for your application and some recommended timelines for you. So let's start with truths and misconceptions. The most important factors for first-time freshmen are these 3 things that I am sharing with you, and this has not changed. So number 1 is your grades. Your GPA is the first thing that the schools see about you. And number 2 is your high school curriculum. So that goes together. So for example, we know that not every high school is the same, right? You don't all go to the same high school on this call. Some of you might go to a really large public school. Some of you might go to a really small public school. Some of you might be at a private religious school. Some of you might be homeschooled, right? So they will compare you against other people at your school. So they're not going to go and compare Tiffany against Safana if we have totally different high school experiences. But what they will look at is how you did in your courses and if you took courses that were challenging, right? They want to see that you took rigorous classes for any of the colleges, especially here in California. AP classes, honors classes, IB curriculum, wherever you can show that you challenged yourself with a new opportunity, even if you didn't get an A. If you got a B in an AP class, but you might have got an A in that same class as a regular, that's okay. Like they love that you chose rigor and gave yourself something difficult. And those are the most important and telling things about you when they're actually looking at your application, is what grades you got and what classes you took against other students that went to the same school as you or relatively the same size school. And then they're going to get into your essays and your extracurriculars. So not every college is going to ask you to write an essay. For those of you applying to Cal States, they don't ask that. So they're looking more really at your grades and your high school curriculum. You do have space to put in your extracurriculars and things, but it's not as robust as if you're applying to UCLA or UC Berkeley or UC Merced or Riverside, where they are going to have space in the actual application for you to do personal insight questions. They call them PIQs. So they're basically like mini essays. They'll give you an option to pick some of the questions and talk a little bit about that, your experience towards those questions. They change every year a little bit. So important when you do get ready that that's a really important factor. And then you look at extracurriculars. So extracurriculars is not just going to be sports, right? Everybody thinks, oh, I was a 4-year varsity volleyball player. That was my extracurricular. What they love to see when you're applying to college is well-roundedness, similar to applying to medical school, right? When you're applying to college, they want to see that, Tiffany did lots of different things and really discovered and explored who she was through the high school experience so that when she's applying to my college, she knows that this is where she wants to be and she's done all the things to kind of get her there. So these have always been the most important factors, even when schools required SATs and ACTs. These were still the top factors. Now, coming into play are the tests, right? So we hear a lot about test optional schools. We hear a lot about test blind schools. And then we hear about the process in general, right? So I want to share with you what I know. So a test optional school is a school that doesn't require the SAT or the ACT for their admissions process, but they will consider them if you submit them when you apply. So say, for example, a test optional school would be the University of Washington. They have a pretty high rigor that they require. They have pretty high GPA that they require, but they also say, hey, if you felt like you did well on the digital SAT or the ACT, and that shows us what kind of student you are beyond just your grades, submit it. And we'll consider it in totality of you, right? With your essays and your extracurriculars. Now, a test blind school, which is the CSUs and the UCs, which most of you might be applying to in the next coming years, if not already, are test blind. That means they will not consider your SAT or your ACT for the admissions process. So they don't even give you a spot to submit those scores when you do the application. However, caveat, if you did take the SAT or the ACT and you get accepted to UCLA, you can then submit your test scores for placement purposes. So then you wouldn't have to take their placement test. If you didn't take a lot of AP classes and bounce out of your lower level English or math based off of those things or your A push, you can submit your test scores to them and they'll use them for that purpose. Now, the most important thing to note is that if any of the schools that you're applying to or any of the scholarships that you're interested in getting have asked you to submit a test score as a requirement, your process is not optional, right? So that means that you want to make sure that in your timeline of preparing for college, you build test time into it. I kind of liken it to being, someone who works on a car. You might not need every tool every time you work on someone's car, but you might need to know how to use that tool if someone brings in a brand new Tesla, right? You don't want to be like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to work on a Tesla because I didn't think I needed that. And now here you are, and I can't help you. So think about the test in that process. If you're not sure where you want to go to school yet, if you're not sure what scholarships you want to apply for, it's not going to hurt you to prepare for and take one of these tests. You don't have to give it to anybody if you don't want to, but you have it to use just in case, right? So that's kind of how I talk about it. And it's really, you guys are all in this influx period of time where some schools are bringing the tests back and some schools aren't. So it's really hard to know as you start researching schools and kind of figuring out what you want to do. You want to make sure that you check that. So like a lot of the Ivy schools, if you are looking to go to an Ivy League, they are bringing them back slowly. Not all of them yet, but some. The Texas system has decided they want to bring them back as a requirement. So if you're interested in the University of Texas, Austin or Texas Tech, they're bringing them back. So it's in a little bit of flux right now. So just make sure that you pay extra attention to whether or not you're going to need a standardized test, right? Most schools will still accept either of them. So you take a practice test of either one and decide which one you like better. That's my best advice to you for picking one. Many scholarships are still tied to test scores, right? So if you're trying to finance your college experience, and scholarships are going to ask for these test scores, you want to have that, right? Like you don't want to say, oh, I can't apply to that money because I didn't do that thing. And a lot of the more selective schools, so if you are thinking of going and trying to go to an Ivy League or a Stanford, although it still says optional at Stanford. I don't know if that will stay that way in the future. You know, they still, excuse me, value these tests, excuse me, as part of your overall process. So my best advice to you is to prepare for you like you're going to need it. And then if you don't, that's okay. Right. So some of the scholarships that I know have recently been asking about test scores or ROTC scholarships, the National Merit Scholarship, which is based off your PSAT score that you all take as juniors, and then some state funded scholarships. In California, a lot of them are moving away from that, of course, but depending on where you are and what school you're looking at going to, they may ask for these things. So I don't know if you all are in Nevada on this call. University of Nevada, Reno does ask for ACT scores as part of funding that you can get from their school. So if you get into Reno and you took the ACT, you can get extra money from the school, right? And who doesn't want to get their education paid for, if at all possible, right? So that's kind of why my advice is to prepare for it and do it, right? It's not going to hurt you. Okay, so let's talk about some similarities and differences between the new digital SAT and the ACT. So if you're not sure which one yet, that's okay. You can pick one. You pick whichever one you like better, and that's the one that you do. But I'll tell you some basic differences that I know of for these two tests. So you all know that the digital SAT is now a computer-based test. It is mostly multiple choice. Almost entirely all of the reading, writing, and language is multiple choice. There's a couple of grid-in questions in the math section, meaning that you actually have to like type in the actual answer. But most of the test is going to be multiple choice. You are tested on reading, writing, language, and math. So reading comprehension, grammar rules, being able to read and extrapolate data from different things. And of course, math. The bulk of what you'll see on these tests on both the ACT and the digital SAT is algebra 2, maybe a couple of trigonometry questions, and definitely some like basic arithmetic and math skills. So you want to make sure that by the time you're taking this test, you've at least gotten through algebra 2, geometry, so that you feel comfortable with the content you're going to see. And the same goes for the ACT. Just so you know there, like that difference, it's exclusively multiple choice. There's no grid in answers on the ACT. It does cover the same topics, right? English, math, reading, writing. They do have a science section that they build out on the ACT, but it's more of a reading comprehension. So if you're like, oh my gosh, science is my best subject, I'm going to take the ACT because I kill it. And I know, I have the entire, process of osmosis memorized. That's not quite what it is in the science. It's more of being able to extrapolate data from different things and answer questions based on reading charts and things like that. And then the scoring scale. So the SAT is out of 1600. And you'll have 200 to 800 for the reading and writing goes together in language. And then the math has its own score. And they'll put them together and give you a composite score. Whereas on the ACT, each section gets a 1 through 36. And then they give you like the composite all together. So you'll get like an English subscore, math subscore, reading subscore, science, and then you'll get that average out of that. And then you'll have like a 31 or something. And then the digital SAT, one of the great things about it is that they have made it shorter. Thank goodness, right? Nobody wants to sit for a really long test. That's one of the things that makes it feel really different, right? The digital SAT is now much shorter than it used to be. It's just about 2 hours, a little bit over with your breaks. Whereas the ACT without the essay is just under 3 hours, including breaks. So if you like a shorter exam, that might be something to consider. But I'm about to tell you something about the digital SAT that's also important to know that might be helping you decide which one you would want to do. It's computer adaptive. So that means that the test gets harder or easier based on how you do at the beginning. So for example, in the digital SAT, there's a first module and a second module for both the reading, writing, language section and then the math. So how you do on that first module, how many answers you get correct, determines how hard or easy your second module is. If that kind of freaks you out, not knowing, you won't know whether or not you got the easy or more difficult. If you don't get into the more difficult, you cannot get as high a score, right? So that's something to know about the digital SAT. Whereas the ACT, everything counts the same. All questions are weighted equally. There is no getting difficult or more getting easier. You have a better ability to skip over things that are hard and guess than you might have on the digital SAT. So while it's shorter, it's a little bit more difficult. So practice both of them. And I will send you links for free access to practice tests for both of these. And then you can try it. Oops, I just got a pop up. Hang on, you guys. I'm going to close that and keep going. Okay. All right. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what makes a standardized test different than the traditional things that you do in high school and why you would want to prepare for them a little bit differently, right? So traditionally in high school, when you get tested, it's on like a weekly basis or a monthly or a quarterly, right? Or maybe even a year, and it's on limited, oops, I'm just going to say not now. For that, hang on. Limited subject matter. So your teacher wants to test you on what they're teaching you, right? Like they're not asking you to remember years of material. Whereas on a standardized ACT or SAT, it's going to cover many years of information, right? Like they might ask you a math question that you haven't seen since 8th grade. Whereas in like your traditional class, that's not something that's going to happen, right? Content knowledge. So in your high school test, like I said, the teachers are trying to test what you've learned from them. So they're not going to be worried so much about like the length of it or the strategy of it. They just want to know whether or not you learned what they taught you. And generally with your high school test, you'll have plenty of time, right? The teacher's going to design a quiz or a test to fit within the time that you have with their class, whether it's a 45 minutes or a 2-hour block schedule. The tests are going to be designed around that, where standardized tests are rigorously timed. The timing doesn't change depending on you, it is the same standard timing for everybody, right? So those are some things when you're practicing and preparing for them that you want to keep in mind so that you are practicing and preparing in the right way. That's different, right? Because a lot of kids will be like, well, I'm a straight A student. Why did I not get a perfect score on the SAT? And it's because of these things, right? Like it's different and they didn't maybe prepare for it in a different way. Another reason that it can be challenging is that students will get partial credit or you can get extra credit at school, right? Your teacher knows you. They may be like, oh, well, Tiffany, you actually got the answer right, but you did the question wrong, right? Like in a math, you actually built out the process wrong, but you got the answer right. So I'll give you partial credit. On the standardized tests, they're graded by a computer. There's only one right or wrong answer. So it's not going to give you partial credit, right? So you have to practice in a different way than you might for your actual classes at school. And then one element that's really important to overall is the tests and the quizzes are just one part of your grade of a class, right? Like it's not usually the only thing that determines whether or not you get an A in the class. Whereas with standardized tests, it's just one score. They're not going to like read into it too much. They're just going to look at your overall score. So when you think about your SAT or your ACT, make sure that you're thinking about it in a totally different way, right? Like it's not meant to be an arbiter of how smart you are. It's not an IQ test. It's simply a standardized test that they want you to take to get into college. So just prepare for it in that really special and unique way. And don't worry about memorizing everything and don't worry about getting a perfect score. Just get the best score you can and then move on to all the other great pieces of your application, right? All right, let's keep going. So I want to talk a little bit about the process and the timeline, right? So you all are starting now, which is great by being here. You're exploring your careers, you're thinking about what majors, you're thinking about what schools. Starting early is really critical to the college process. I think it's great that you're here. It's almost like a moot point that I'm even talking to you about this because you're already doing it, right? If you love a particular subject of study, or you love a particular group or enrichment program that you're into, or a research project that you got on, those are things that can lead to a career that you might really be interested. So make sure you're keeping yourself open to lots of different opportunities and exploring the different paths because that will help you decide what major you would like to go into and what school you'd like to do that at, right? All of those kind of processes are really important. Consider taking career tests or interest inventories. I don't know if your school does like SCORE, where you can actually go in and kind of take some career testing in there, where you actually kind of answer questions about yourself that are really more about you, right? Like, do you like to sleep in late? Do you like loud noises? Do you like to be the life of the party? Those kinds of things. And it'll help you give you some ideas for what you might be good at. Here's a couple of web links that I will send to you all of some different spots that you can go to do some career searching and some kind of college interests. And then major selection. So this is super important. Some things to consider when you're thinking about what you would like to major in, because a lot of students don't do this. Um, is it a competitive major that you might need to prepare for? You all potentially are pre-med, right? We already know from talking about the MCAT that it is a competitive program. So make sure that you're thinking about that when you're looking at the different majors at different schools. How competitive is it? Do you like that, or would you like something different, right? Keeping all that your kind of hat. Are there lots of options in the field? Or do you need to specialize, right? You kind of already are on the path to figuring this out by being here. And what kind of curriculum will you have to take in college? Um, if you don't love science, the medical field could be a challenge for you, right? So thinking about that kind of stuff before you get into a program at college will really help you pick the right one. Is it a growing employment sector, right? Is it all over the country, or do I have to live in a specific spot? I use my niece as an example. I have twin nieces who are starting college next year. One of them is interested in fashion, and the other was interested in engineering. So total polar opposites of what kind of programs that they were looking at. But I really tried to encourage them to think about where they would like to live after college, if it's a big city or if it's a more rural community. Those kinds of things play into how your college experience will go and what you would like, right? If you find a place that fits your needs in those ways, it's going to be more successful for you. You're going to have a better experience, and it will potentially lead to lots of connections and opportunities when you do start like your shadowing and your clinicals and all that kind of stuff for med school. All right. So for those of you who are in California, which I'm guessing is a good chunk on this call, I like to talk a little bit about the UC requirements. And I know we don't have a ton of time left, so I'll go fast. You guys should all be familiar with this. If you aren't already, go ask your counselors at your high school to tell you about the UC A through G requirements, because this is the primary items that they're going to look at to make sure that you're prepared to go to UCLA. They're going to look at the grades that you got in these particular subjects, and that's how they calculate your GPA. Most important years in high school are sophomore and junior year. Those grades will go into this. So if you aren't familiar with your A through G, if you don't know if you're on track to meet these base requirements, make sure that you go talk to your counselor or your career advisor at your school. You guys will also have my contact information when we're done, so you can always email me and be like, hey, I'm at this school and this is what I'm doing. These are the base things that they're going to ask of you. And the CSU system is really close to the same. They might have one less year of recommended language, maybe, but otherwise everything else should be pretty close. They might have one less year of math requirement. I can't think of it off the top of my head. And they have a little bit of a lower GPA requirement. So just know that it's pretty much the same. So if you keep this as your track of what you're shooting for, you'll be prepared to apply to any CSU and any UC, and most likely any like Arizona University, Nevada University, Washington, Oregon. All right, and then timeline. I know we only have a couple minutes left, so I'll go quick. Okay, so my recommended timeline for high schoolers. 10th grade, you almost all will take a practice digital SAT. If your school is offering it to you, do it. If they don't offer it to you, that's okay. It's not a requirement, it's just practice. And if you do really well, it'll enter you into the National Merit Scholarship Contention, which is free money. Okay, so we always want free money wherever we can get it when it comes to college. And then when you get into 11th grade, that's when you're going to start thinking about AP tests. If you're taking some of them in 10th grade, that's okay. Really, in 11th grade is when you're going to want to think about taking your SATs and your ACTs, so that by the time you're done with 11th grade and you're going into summer before senior year, you can start really thinking about which colleges you're interested in, because the beginning of your senior year is when you'll be doing your applications and getting your essays and your letters of recs and all that. Like, I know we're running out of time, but you guys will have this timeline in this deck, which I will send, that you can follow. And if you have any questions about it, you'll have my contact info, and you can always shoot me an email and ask me any questions that we don't get to today. And then I will include all of this, like I mentioned, similar for MCAT students. We also help with other things. So we help with academic tutoring if you feel like you need help boosting your grades. We help with PSAT stuff. We help with college admissions counseling, essay review. We have a really cool new AI essay reviewer. That's a whole nother subject, but lots of cool stuff for the whole process. So I will get all this information out to you all. If you need me, you can always ask me any questions you want via email. Any questions I can answer now? I only have a few minutes left, but maybe I could fire off some answers for you all
Okay,
now.
I have a few in the chat that I'll
Okay.
read to you. From Malik, regarding MCAT prep books, is there much change between the years? Like if I want to apply for 2026, should I wait for the 25-26 MCAT book drop other than the 2024-2025 prep book?
I got you. Yeah. So the prep books won't usually change in any insurmountable way unless the test itself changes. So if you have a book set that somebody gave you last year and you're not going to take the test for another year, you should probably be okay. The Princeton Review will update our book sets and things like that, and so will Kaplan and Blueprint and AMCAS data and all that good stuff. Only if the test like significantly changes, but otherwise you should be okay to use whatever book set you have now for a future test sitting.
Okay, next question is it acceptable to take online prerequisite classes like biochemistry or general chemistry?
Depends. That's a very tricky question, and we could go on and on about that. It depends on which undergrad school you're going to, and where you're applying to your medical school program. So I can't give you a yes or no. I would think that most cases, if you're taking an accredited online program through an accredited university, it should be okay. But I would check with your advisor of your program at your undergrad and make sure, because sometimes they'll be like, oh, sometimes junior college transfer courses are okay and sometimes they're not. It depends on the junior college and the course. It can get sticky. So by all means, check with your advisor first and foremost at your school. They will know.
This is a kind of long one. In regards
Okay.
to GPA and post-gap year students, is
Mhm.
it okay to take classes? I'm sorry, I lost track of the question. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay. Is it okay to take classes between post-graduation and applying to medical school? In other words, after getting your bachelor's degree, could taking a class after graduating and before applying to medical school, i.e. taking a class during your gap year,
Mhm.
could it negatively affect your GPA for medical school credit otherwise? If you take classes during this gap year timeframe or even during a post-bac or graduate program?
Mhm.
Or is just your previous and or current science GPA what matters versus over GPA and or additional GPA with new classes?
I got
Hi, you
you.
guys, I'm back too, and I'll help you, Carolyn, with the questions. Okay?
Please.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want to answer that one, Salfina? Is that why you're
No,
jumping on?
why don't you shoot
Oh,
with
okay.
that? Because I saw a bunch of them that I wanted to answer, but you go on with that one.
So GPA, there's different ones like you mentioned in the question. There's your science GPA and then there's your overall GPA. So any classes that you take will be counted in either of those, right? So they're not looking just at like, oh, what was your undergrad GPA? They're looking at your science GPA and they're looking at your overall GPA. So any classes that you take at any time will affect that. If you feel like you need to take more classes after graduating from your undergrad, that's where the post-bac programs can really come in handy because they'll help you organize that, right? And they'll help you stay on track with that. But if you're like, oh, I just want to take some classes for personal enrichment purposes, that will still be encapsulated in your overall GPA. Does that make sense? I hope that kind of answers it. When all else fails, check with the advising department of your undergrad program. Almost all of you will have a pre-health advising department at your school. And if you're unsure what you want to do, ask them because they will know like about your school specifically, about the path you're trying to go to. They will be like a really great expert for you to help guide you in that regard. Better than me because my knowledge is like so vast and general. I would hate to guide anybody in the wrong direction. So definitely check with your pre-health advising at your undergrad program.
Great. Geraldine, regarding is it acceptable to take, did you guys address this?
Yes.
Online prerequisite
Yes,
classes?
yeah, we talked about that one.
Okay, and Geraldine, you're coming tomorrow, right? I want you to speak to Dr. Carol Miller. Write that down. She is at UCSF School of Medicine, and then there'll be a panel of medical schools. Be sure to ask those medical school deans of admissions that question.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's a great
that's
idea.
very important to do that. Okay, and then there was
Yeah, this is the spot for you all to get all your questions answered. If not by
right.
me, then tomorrow by everybody that's there. Like, you should walk away pretty much totally prepared.
Okay,
I hope.
Emily, the same thing about community colleges. You guys who are in community colleges,
Mhm.
tomorrow when that first workshop in the morning, those deans of admissions, they're the ones that their staff are the ones that are admitting people. So you want to ask them about community college to a university and how it affects your application.
Yeah.
And somebody asked also about organic chem. They weren't doing quite as well, and should they take a W or what? Ask them too. This is the perfect place to ask those people those kind of questions. And others who have not put those questions in, be sure to hit those folks up. And if you don't have a chance, right after the workshop, when we're going to do a speed mentoring session, ask those people who are at the medical schools. Now every doctor won't know this, but the people who are actually at medical school, they're the ones. And it's pretty, oops.
I just stopped sharing. It was me. It was me.
Oh,
You're
okay.
okay.
It's pretty, okay. I lost my question. It's pretty, they're pretty clear about, at least for their medical schools and probably the ones that they are close to, that they'll know about, this question about, if I'm not doing so good, should I do it and take it later?
Right.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Because there have been quite a few kids that, things with chemistry and organic chemistry, and they haven't quite, what do I do? Those are the people to ask you tomorrow. Again, the medical school admissions people, not necessarily the doctors, because the doctors are way past that. Okay. There was another question about scholarships and whether or not you should take the SAT, ACT. I think you, Tiffany, hit on it, but let me just explain. I have 5 grandsons, and it's a world, believe me. But anyway, taking the SAT, most of them took the SAT. I think one took the ACT. Was one of the best things that they did. Fortunately, they did quite well. One of them did, 2 of them did really, really, really exceptional. And then the others were way above average. But let me tell you, the scholarships that they were able to apply for, especially since many of you are going to apply for schools outside of California, was amazing. And a lot of scholarships are not tied to your schools. So, for example, you guys have heard of the Jackie Robinson Scholarship for African American males, for example. There's they want to see that SAT. There's going to be a gentleman on tomorrow with a men's group, and this is for males, but they got them for women. They got them for not, it doesn't make any difference what your gender is. But they want to see the SAT, and they give 5,000 to 10,000 for college students. So you guys, you got to really weigh your ability to take the test and your prep and all of that versus not taking it and what you may be cutting out in terms of opportunities for financial support or scholarships. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Does anybody have any questions on that? Because we were just amazed. I mean, I've been this rodeo is a very interesting rodeo about the ACT, SAT versus the rest of the country versus what's happening in California.
Yes, it's very different. In California, it's a very unique scenario. So make sure you're prepared for all of it, any of it, and then you can pick. I want you all to have your pick of what you want. You pick, not them.
Somebody asked pertaining to AP courses. AP courses are the gold standard. You guys know that, right?
Yeah.
So if you got an AP course, and then remember that not only does the AP course important, but it's also important what your school is. Where your school is. So if you're at one school that has a lot of kids is going, and another school maybe kids are going, but they not maybe want to go, but maybe not as many getting accepted. If you can get into an AP course, take your AP course. Try to.
Yes.
So,
they will know how many AP courses are available at your school, and they will know how many you took, right? So if you have like only 4 AP courses and you took all 4, that's stand out, right? Like that's a star for you at your school. If you go to a school that has like 20 AP courses and you only take 4, that's a little bit different, right? So then you're not quite as shining out. But by all means, AP classes can be hard. You know what I mean? So take them
Yeah.
as a challenge to yourself and take as many as you can if you are really interested. But there's plenty of awesomely average kids, we call them, who don't do that and they go really far as well. So like, don't let it freak you out, but if you can do it, do it. Like Safana said, totally great way to stand out, but you don't have to.
The other thing that I really want to speak to you guys is that sometimes they will try to, sometimes it seems like some education institutions are trying to discourage you from taking these courses. If you know deep down inside that you should take it, fight for yourself.
Yep.
Advocate for yourself. Don't let them tell you that. Okay. You know, I just want you to, and if you ever have a problem with something like that, you call us. Okay? You call us because
Yep.
it's important. It's important, and we need good doctors. The question about biochemistry versus general chemistry, should we take it online or not? Again, that's a question. If I didn't mention that one, ask Dr. Miller or
yeah, you're going to have a lot of experts tomorrow that are on the other end of where you're trying to go. So they will be really, really insightful into those questions that you all have about transferring, about what classes, about how much they recommend, about biochem versus chemistry, organic chemistry grades. They'll be great for all of that stuff. Absolutely. Like today is not the end all be all of all question asking for sure.
And then the other thing is, I always strongly recommend that high school kids, if you can afford or can figure out, sometimes they may even give you, because I know applying for a lot of different scholarships, there are these fees and your parents got to pay these fees. Sometimes there are little stipends that will help you for those fees. But I always recommend, if you're here, apply for at least, if you got 10 schools that you're applying for, do 5 of them out of the state.
Yes.
You know, because you might as well look at it, and you got to learn. My grandsons are at UC Berkeley, and one of them's at the University of Miami, and one of them's at Loyola Marymount, and then one of them's in the Navy. The schools, all those schools, the 3, not the Navy one, but they have a campus in Europe. So they went to, one went to London, and 2 of them went to Spain. They're in Spain now.
Nice.
And they're in Spain, and they're studying in their field 1 semester, but they got to go to Morocco, Italy, France. They went to somewhere in Northern Africa. They couldn't go too far because there's a lot of wars going on. But you know, it's a lot going on. So
yeah,
but all of them took the SAT, ACT too, though. So just know that this. Does that make any sense? If anybody is giving me a little feedback or any comments or any questions that
I see lots of heads nodding in agreement. So
okay,
I think they got our
okay, all
message.
All right.
Be over prepared, not under prepared. That's what I'm telling you. And then you can have your choice of anything you want to do.
Okay. All right. Let's see.
I think we're eating into their break time now. I'm sorry, you guys.
Okay.
Carolyn's like, yes, you are.
Yes, you are. Okay. Anything else then? If not, thank you, Miss Tiffany. And you will send us the president, and then we will send you the email addresses, right?
That'd be perfect. Yeah.
Because she has little goodies.
I do. I have some free practice resources, some discount information for you all, my contact information. So that way you can follow up with me and ask me any questions that maybe we didn't get to today. I will get an email out to all of you, and Safana and the DOB program will reach out to you too.
And do this, check your spam, just in case you went into spam.
Good call.
Check your spam. Okay.
It does send me to spam sometimes, but congratulations on your first step of being here. You all are already doing a lot of things other kids aren't doing. So good job. Keep it up.
Thank you so much, Tiffany.
Good luck. Bye, Carolyn. It's good to see you.
Good
I
to
don't know where
see you,
Julie
Timmy.
is. Bye, Julie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, everybody, where are we? Let's see. Where are we in time? We
We're at
got
12:57.
okay, so you guys need a break? You want to take 5-minute break and we come back for the research one? Or you want to go straight to it?
Let's take a break so I can get the presenter set up.
Okay,
in
so
5
we'll take a
minutes.
5-minute break. What time do you
Yes.
want to come back?
Come back at 1:05.
Okay, you guys, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, hopefully you guys are all have joined us and had a little break. So we are now moving towards our very last but most wonderful workshop on research. And PMF thought that after talking to many different medical schools and staff and faculty, that one of the things that we needed to do was to explain why research is important in your journey to become a doctor and what kind of research and what does that mean, because research is a lot of meanings. So we are very fortunate to have two wonderful young women, Dr. Coffee Hemphill, who has been with PMF for many years, and she's a neuro fellow, and she's at Harborview Medical Center at the University of Washington. She also helped design a lot of the internship and PMF's program, and particularly the Doctors on Board program. So welcome, Dr. Hemphill. And then we have Anna Wopal, who is a 4th-year medical student at UC Davis and was just accepted into the residency program. And we are very proud of her. So congratulations to you, Anna. And what in May, whatever, I'll be Dr. Wopal, right? What day will you graduate? What day is your ending?
May 18th.
May 18th, it'll be a doctor. So congratulations. And for that said, they are going to try to do a very interactive workshop with the two of you, with those two, with everybody here. So you can put questions in the chat, you can ask questions, however they want to run this, because research is very important, but you need to know what kind of research is important, not just any research, okay? All right, so with that said, we want to start out with however you guys want to start out. Who's going to be first?
Sure. I'll go ahead and introduce myself.
Okay, thank you.
A little bit more about my journey. Well, first of all, good afternoon, everybody. I'm so happy to be here with you all, spending my afternoon, sharing some of my passions in research, and hopefully impart some of the ways that you can get involved in research, why it's important, and then answer any questions that you may have. It's my understanding, though, that we have plenty of students of different levels in this chat. So hopefully you all know how to use the reaction button, but I want to know where my high school students at. Go ahead and react so I can see you and shout you out. Yes, Saunders. Hey, Samya. Anyone else?
Cisa? Is it Cisa?
Mason, Michaela, Cecilia, welcome. Madison, Emily. Listen, y'all are ahead of the game.
Christina?
I'm so happy that you're here.
Yeah.
All right, where are our community college students?
There you go.
We got them here. Any CC students? Yes. Hey, Rose. Hey, Dajanique. Hopefully I said that right. Nancy, Micah.
Yeah, Dejanique, you said it right.
Dajanique.
Dejanique.
Rachel, shout out to y'all. Okay. And then how about our undergrad students? Miles, Julian, Eileen, Jazz. Hey, y'all. Katrine, welcome, welcome, welcome. Any postgrad students?
Erica. Yeah.
After you graduated, hey, Asian Erica.
Yeah.
Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, again, thank you all for being here, and hopefully you all, no matter what level you're at, see the benefits of research and how you can get involved. I'll start off by saying I think all of us have had some sort of research experience, whether you know it or not. Okay, and let me give you some examples of that. So, when you were in middle school or elementary, did you ever do experiments with a volcano? Did you ever do one with the Sprite bottle? That was your early introduction to research, okay? And in this day and age with Instagram, TikTok, how many things have you had questions for, but you actually went and did your research through those mediums? I know it's a couple. Yes, exactly. So you all have some research experience, whether you know it or not. And then I know there's some people who may have a bit more formal research. And so what I like to talk about first is my initial formal introduction to research. And so I graduated, I'm originally from South Central Los Angeles. I graduated from King Jew Medical Magnet High School and then went to UCLA for undergrad. And I knew early on that I wanted to go to medical school. So I entered UCLA as a pre-med student. And so when trying to figure out my major, I use like my life science classes to be able to inform me in what I should major in. And to be honest, it became my own bit of a research experiment. So I was very curious to know like who is like what organ and what organ system is in charge of the body. And I was really curious to know how the brain works and what it does in terms of the immune system and how it interacts when you're actively in a disease process. And so that is what got me into neuroscience as my major. Now, when I was a neuroscience major way back when, it was fresh off the press. So it was a relatively new major. And to be honest, we didn't have actual textbooks to be able to study. So we actually use a lot of like research and primary literature to be able to study what how the brain works. And from that, I just remember thinking like, looking at some of these research papers, like this is so difficult to understand. I was struggling to be able to interpret what the findings meant. And so it took me hours to do that. And when I finally did, I would say, that's all? That's what you meant to say? Well, then if that's what you wanted to say, why don't you just say that? You know? And so that in itself made me interested in participating in research, but more so in an aspect from a student's point of view, being able to better understand how research is conducted and being able to convey that information. And so in addition to that, though, while being at UCLA, I learned what health disparities were. So I grew up about 25 minutes away from the campus. It looks completely different though in terms of demographics. And I'm in my pre-med classes and the organizations learning about what are the top diseases killing people in America, and which communities are most at risk for that. And so I had my own question, which was, why are things the way they are? Like, why do we have these health disparities? And what can we do to change it? And so from that, I actually got involved in a program called the Stroke Force. And it is a program that is run through the UCLA health system that allows students who are pre-med or just interested in neurology to teach about strokes, but then also learn more of the research in strokes. And so we did journal clubs and we went out into the community to teach people about strokes and how they're preventable. But then also I had the opportunity to be a research assistant and help with enrolling some of the patients that came in to be a part of the clinical trials. And so that was my initial encounter with research, and it's something that sparked something in me. And I knew it was something that I needed to continue to do in medical school. And I will continue that part of the story after Dr. Hempfield tells her bit of her first encounter.
That was so beautiful. Wow. I understand how you're a good MC. Okay. Well, hello everyone. I am Coffee. Please call me Coffee. I am, I will do the same thing that Anna did, which is just sort of take you through my story. I also think that research is really important, and I think it's important both because people are going to ask you if you did do it, and then if you didn't, why you didn't do it. And so you have to have a response either way. So might as well make it a positive one. And then two, a lot of just being a doctor, as you might learn, or as you might already know, just based on living in the world, we don't know the answers to everything. And a lot of being a doctor is, how can I help my patients more? How can I answer this gap in our knowledge? And I think that's a natural sort of progression of wanting to care for your patients. And so research really is not this like separate scary thing, I think, from being a clinician. It's really embedded in the network of being a clinician. So I grew up in Atlanta. I came out to the Bay Area for undergrad, and then when I was there, I've always been interested in science and math. That was like always my jam. I took more AP classes in science and math, and like English was something I did, but was like never my favorite. And so I thought I might go down the medicine pathway, but I wasn't sure. It was a lot having to do with like talking to people. And at that point, I was in my awkward years, and I was like, I don't know if I can just create relationships with random people all the time. And so I thought a different way to still be interested in math and science would be to add to research, right? To add to the foundations of knowledge that we have. And so I started my research journey with that goal in mind rather than Anna's. And I will recommend Anna's journey, where she came up with a question and then found a way to like figure out how to tackle that question. I instead was like, I should get into research. What could I do? And I think in undergrad, you have a lot of opportunities. I specifically took a seminar where each week it was like a like 1-unit class, and each week for an hour, they would have a professor come in and tell us about their research and why they think that's interesting and what they're hoping to contribute to the field. And so that gave me a lot of contacts. If that's something that you have at your school, I highly recommend that. But then I also just asked the lecturers that I had already in my classes. And so in my first year being on the science-y track, I wasn't pre-med. I think I was like a bioengineer major at that point, and eventually switched to biology. I had taken chemistry first. And so I decided that, I would do some research in chemistry. And I found a professor who seemed like a good mentor. And I learned what questions he wanted to answer in the field, because who am I to come up with my own question, is really how I felt at that point. I didn't really have enough information about the field in order to figure out where the gaps were. And so I really appreciated that mentorship in finding my own question, or in finding a question to tackle. And ultimately, I really enjoyed the goal of the research. The day-to-day, however, was very different. I was in the basement of a chemistry building, and I was fixing things that kept breaking, and I didn't get to have any social engagement, and I was awkward, but not that awkward. So I really didn't enjoy that experience, and I left research for a long time. I didn't do another type of research until my last year of college and the year after graduating, because I just thought, hey, research isn't for me. I'm going to focus on the other big two. So I feel like every medical school is looking for you to have some clinical experience, some research experience, and some volunteering experience. And I was like, let me just go hard on the clinical and the volunteering, because research just isn't for me. And I found over time, as we'll talk about a little bit more, that research can look like a lot of different things, and that research can be valid in all of its different forms. And so that's what I hope to share with you today, that just because one research isn't the fit for you doesn't mean that research is not right for you. And everyone can have a good time with research.
Thank you, Kathy. Touching on that, I'd like to discuss a bit about what exactly research is. And I think you brought up a great point, that sometimes when we think of research, we think of the wet lab. We think of being, on the bench, probably working with some mice that you don't want to touch, as the only kind of research, but it's certainly not the case. When I got to medical school. I actually joined the ARC-MD program. It stands for Academic Research Careers in Medicine. And I knew coming in that one of my main interests was health disparities research. And so I let my mentors know, like, hey, this is what I want to do. How can I get started with that? And so a lot of my research has been revolved around like retrospective, meaning like things that have already occurred. And I'm just kind of like taking this data and analyzing it and being able to draw conclusions from it. And so I am particularly interested in cardiovascular research because y'all, cardiovascular disease is still the #1 killer, okay? And so I want to figure out ways to be able to reduce that. And so a lot of my research has been around the social determinants of health and how that impacts the outcomes for people who have like heart attacks. And for me, that involves me like looking into what we call the electronic medical record, looking at all the different patients that have come in with a heart attack and just pinpointing all these different things about them, learning the history about each patient and being able to draw patterns, see patterns, like what's going on, what are we seeing here, what zip code are they coming from, what access to care do they have versus what they don't. And that is actually considered research. I have been fortunate to be able to share this kind of work across the nation. Another reason why you should do research, the perks, like you get to travel, okay? You get to travel and a lot of times expenses paid. So think about that. And it's something that I've been able to connect with other people with. And so I just want to impart to you that research can look very different. I am not in anyone's wet lab. I have never stepped foot into a lab. Well, I lie. The first year of medical school I did, only just to kind of explore different things. And I already knew it wasn't for me, but it was like a confirmation, like, okay, I'm definitely not doing this. And then focus more on like clinical research and more like meta-analysis, which is kind of like a research of the research. So those are just a few examples. And I think Kathy has several as well.
Yeah, I do. I'm curious to hear from you all, though. So we've talked about my first experience, which I would call basic science research. And we've talked about Anna's first experience, which is clinical research, mostly in the retrospective studies, very focused on health disparities research. What other kind of research have you guys heard about before? Feel free to unmute or put it in the chat. Yeah.
Has anybody done any research? No. Maybe that's important, that maybe the panel can address, is research important when applying to medical school?
Look, we have a few people that raise their hand.
A few people? Okay.
I did some research prior to college. It wasn't like intense because I didn't have the connections that I wanted. So I just kind of went to random universities and was like, this is what I'm doing. What do you guys think about? And it was research in spinal stenosis because my mom was recently then diagnosed with spinal stenosis. And I was like, this is like so cool. What is this about? So I had her send me her MRIs and her x-rays and had my grandma do the same thing. And I presented at the Texas Research Board. It was like for undergrads, grads, and military. And I was able to present there and it was so fun. And ever since then, I've been wanting to do another research, which is, I think I typed it into the chat. It was amnesia and specifically the hippocampus. And I think it's just such an amazing thing to explore. I think anything really is an amazing thing to explore, but that was like one of my first really thorough experience of research, and everyone else with their professional boards, and I had like these texts that was glued onto one of those like science posters you present in middle school, and it was fun. It was a lack of experience for sure when I entered, but I came out knowing more.
Rose, it sounds to me like that's a case study that you used for your mom and your grandma. Is that what you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was fun.
Cool. Awesome. What about Lizette?
I was actually able to do some research at UC Santa Cruz through the Access program. there's like this program that they have like in collaboration with 4 different community colleges, like locally. So I was able to get into a inorganic chemistry lab. But I was like really intimidated by that as a bio major because the most I've done in like chemistry was like OChem up to that point. But it ended up being like a really good experience. And then I applied to present my research at SOCNAS, which is the Society for the Advancement of Chicanos, Native Americans in Science.
Okay.
So I was able to go to Portland last October to present that. And that was like my first time presenting. So that was like another like really exciting thing that I got to do. And then currently I'm doing, well, I'm just volunteering at UCSF in a lab that's studying indirect pathways of marijuana.
Great. You have some questions in the chat. Okay, so, and different people did different things. Sanders, can you guys speak to when you're applying to medical school? Somebody sent this. When you're applying to medical school, does research matter if you've had research experience? Can you address that? Okay, that's one.
Absolutely.
Why don't you guys address that and I'll look through.
Okay, sounds good. So I would like to preface that is research 100% mandatory to apply to medical school? It is not, but it is extremely helpful. And I would advise getting into some research because at some point, if you're going to go into medicine, you're going to have to be able to interact with research anyway. So it's like you might as well get yourself a head start. And so I do think if you've done the research, it is something that you will absolutely be asked about if you put it on your application. So that research assistant opportunity that I had while I was in undergrad definitely came up in my interviews, and they're going to ask about it. And what they want to know is, what did I do? What did I learn? And how is it going to make me a great doctor? And I will say, just in general, like doing research gives you so many transferable skills that will help you in medical school. Like the discipline that you need to do research, right? The teamwork that is necessary. It all helps when it comes to studying, when it comes to even applying, right? So when you're applying, you have to be structured, right? You need to know when you're going to take your MCAT, when you're going to ask for your letter of recommendations, when are you going to be able to submit your applications, right? And then when it comes to teamwork, you know, being able to have someone to soundboard with when it comes to your application. And then I cannot like emphasize this enough when it comes to studying, whether that's for the MCAT or just in general, when you start medical school, it's like doing it as a team. It helps so much. It increases your productivity. It helps to solidify your knowledge. Like there's so many different transferable skills. And these are things that I was able to talk about when I was in my interview, both for applying into medical school and then also applying into residency. It has come up again. So that's why I say like getting that early start is very, very helpful. And it's something that I would encourage all of you to do.
Yeah, there's very little to add to that. I will maybe just like go back to the big 3. I think that it makes a lot of sense how medical schools try and select their students, and truly their job is to sort of like read the tea leaves and decide who will be a good doctor. Like, how are you supposed to do that, right? That's a really hard job. And so what they have to do before they invite you to the interview, because they're already sort of narrowing down the applicant pool a lot before they do that, is to figure out if you have those big 3. And really clinical experience tells them, oh, I've tried this out. I do like this. Cool. I won't be wasting like 4 years of my life and, you know, getting a lot of debt for no reason, right? So the clinical is really important. Volunteering is to see if you're like a kind, caring person, because that's sort of the kind of thing that we want to have in our doctors. And then research, I think, is really important, even if it doesn't feel like that's anything that you'll ever do. Even if you already know that you're not going to be an academic doctor, that you're going to work in a community, that you're not going to contribute a lot to research, I think it tells them that you're curious and curious about finding more, because even if you're not conducting your own sort of, you know, laboratory or clinical research, you are still going to be researching odd conditions for your patients. You're still going to be interacting with research. You're going to, different big studies come out every year. I'm a neurologist, and the big study that came out this year is that if we take a clot out of a patient who has a big clot in their brain, even if they have a large stroke already, they still do better, right? We thought that before they wouldn't, benefit from that. But a large group of studies came out saying that that is definitely better. And I know I can believe that that's better, and it changes my practice because I can read those research studies and say, oh, this was well-conducted research, or, oh, they had a blind spot here, and I'm not sure that that should be practice changing. And so you're going to interact with research throughout your time as a doctor in medical school and beyond. And so they want to know if you have any skills already doing that. And so I think it's definitely something you'll be able to talk about and bond with your interviewer about, and that's great. But it tells them something that you can't tell them any other way.
Okay. Thank you, Coffee. That was very good. Saunders, you have a question? Your hand's up. Is Saunders? Is it Nisai? Saunders?
Hold on. Hey, my
Yes.
bad.
Do you have a question? Your
No, that
hand's
was,
up. Oh, okay, your hand. Okay, all right. That's good. Okay, we saw that, and somebody just okay. Okay. There's a couple of questions about you guys have kind of talked about the types of research, and I know you have wonderful presentations that show the different types of research. Would you kind of outline, discuss the types of research that there are and what makes a difference? Or, what are the types of research that you're talking about when you're not becoming a doctor?
Yeah, maybe Anna, do you want to answer the questions about capstone, and then I'll pull up my.
Great, there you go. Oops, you're muted.
You're on mute, Anna.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So the question is from Stephanie. Thank you. Would capstone projects for social science count as research if it was research on a social aspect or interaction, for example, with a survey, with relationships? And I would say yes. Pretty much anything that you do that has a question that you are trying to answer, that you have a hypothesis, that you create an experimental design, it is research, even if it is not necessarily medical research. But what I will say is that, all your different experiences over time coalesce. What I like to think of, or the way I like to think of things is that medicine is about treating people from all different backgrounds and all different walks of life. So it's helpful that you bring that with you, right? All your different talents, all your different experiences, all the different and unique research projects, bringing that to the forefront to be able to help you serve your patients. So I absolutely think that that's something that can count, and it's something that you can incorporate into your application. And also those skills, again, will be transferable to medical research that you will eventually do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this was one of the hardest things for me to get my brain around when I first started. And so I made this PowerPoint, and you can tell me if it's useful or not, but I just wanted to talk about all the different types of research that I've done. So this is the basic science research I did in the chemistry department. And it was really trying to coat nanoparticles with some a polymer to help with the delivery of a slow release medication, which sounded so cool an idea. And the day-to-day was just not my vibe. And that really, I recognize that we are both very clinically oriented researchers, but I have a lot of fellows and co-residents where this is their vibe, and they love sort of fixing and finding the issues. And so I don't want that to sound like this is not, something that anyone enjoys, but I recognize that that wasn't something I enjoyed. I then went in my sort of gap year between college and medical school. I was a research coordinator in the bariatric clinic at my undergrad. And I just got this opportunity after seeing an email, because people are always looking for more help to do research. In your training years, research is somewhat well funded. But when you're running a lab or running research, when you're an attending, sometimes it can be hard because you have to find grants, and so they're always looking for volunteers. And so this was a nice place to go. I think that this population is really underserved, and at this point, because I'm old, sorry, bariatric clinics and bariatric research was very new, and so kind of the studies that we were doing were about your mood before and after surgery. Did your taste change before and after surgery? Because we'd learned about that anecdotally. How do people do in terms of complication rates? I did. Google Glass was just coming out then, and so they were wondering if they could do the timeout, which is a safety protocol you do in the OR. Before the surgery started, if they could do that with Google Glass. And so I both got to participate in research. This is something that went on my resume, but I also got to be clinical. And I talked to patients every day I was there, which was really my favorite. So this was really a great experience for me. In my first to second year of medical school, I did curriculum research, which is a type of QI, but I think is underdone, honestly. How many times have you been in a class and you're like, that could have been done better? This is what I did. I basically was like, there's a problem here. I didn't like the way that we had this experience, and I got to change that experience for the first years that sort of came after me, after creating some documents and making some changes to the expectations, which was really great. As many of you have talked about, going to conferences and writing papers and having presentations and posters, all of that is fun to do, but it's also really important. Research is only useful if you share it, and so I think that is one of the reasons that medical schools and anyone you talk to about research is really going to ask if you've been able to share your research with other people. So I'd keep that in mind when you're thinking about projects. Between my third and fourth year of medical school, I did a global health research focused on global stroke and lower and middle income countries and how that had changed over time. And that was really rewarding research, I think. But it was also something where I didn't get to interact with patients. And so I really enjoyed all of the skills that I gained from that year. I got to participate in something called TICKR, which is training in clinical research. And I got to take classes where I learned how to design a clinical research program. I learned how to work in Stata, which is one of the analytical tools that you can use to sort of analyze data. I learned how to clean data that has been collected from a sort of publicly available database, which often needs to happen. So I learned that there were many roles that one could take in research, and that I liked some better than others. And so it's important to find your role. Often when you're younger, it's to be the writer, but it's also important to, if you have any statistical knowledge, to be the statistician. That's something that researchers are really, really missing. If you want to be a study coordinator, that's an important role. Are you the person who puts together the data? Are you the person that builds the poster and makes everything pretty? Like, all of those things are important in conducting research. I did some health disparities research. This was another database review, but it was with a local hospital that I had seen actually make this change. They made the change for how they approached acute stroke. So when someone, has stroke symptoms and comes into the ER, should they go into a room and we slowly evaluate them and then decide, oh, they might have a stroke, and then take them to the CT scanner and whatever? Or do we go straight to the CT scanner and do everything along the way so that we can get them that medication that is, better the earlier that you give it? And it showed that, when we made that change, it helped most people, but we wanted to make sure that we weren't leaving anyone behind, because race, gender, and primary language are all factors that can add to disparities. And so I, analyzed people based on their race, their primary language, and a few other things that you can sort of see here, and found actually that there was no difference, which was really great. It was in the county hospital. At the academic site, we weren't so lucky. So that helped us make some changes. I did some qualitative research, which is just a completely different kind, more of like a narrative research, rather than a more analytical research. I wanted to understand how patient de-escalation teams were working in all three of the sites that I was practicing in. And I got to ride along with them and see how they did their work. I interviewed them, I looked into their history, and basically created this sort of narrative to try and help other programs, like other hospital systems, create a similar team that would work for their patient population. And then I did some quality improvement research just this past year, whether or not we should take patients to a scanner after they have a thrombectomy, which is a procedure after a procedure you can get to make a stroke smaller, basically. Turns out we shouldn't be doing that. And this was, wasting a lot of resources and a lot of people's time. They weren't able to start the next case because they were waiting 30 to 40 minutes to do this. So it was something that I could see the impact of now, where I'm talking to a lot of the administrators and sort of making changes to the protocols that we use because of this research. So those are all the things that I've done. And I'm sure that there are other things that other people have done, but research can look like a lot of different things. Even if you do research and you don't ever present it or publish it, that's still research. That's still something that you've learned from and contributed to. And then the more that you're able to get your research out there, the better, I think, both for you and your experience, but also for the people that we're trying to help. Research and knowledge isn't helpful in a bubble.
Thank you so much for sharing, Kathy.
Yes, thank you. That's great. Okay. So there's a question about how do you go about finding research opportunities? And again, keep in mind, I'm assuming they're thinking of, you're not a medical student, so you're one of those groups. Where do you find those different ones? Especially if you're high school, but even if you're a college or post-bac. So can you guys address that? Because I think they want to know, where do they go to find out, and also if they're paid or not, if that's important or not too. Okay.
Right. I'd be happy to answer that question.
Okay.
So I would first start off with definitely look into what your respective institutions have. So if you're in high school, if you're in community college, undergrad, campus, like everyone has either a professor, a pre-med, or a science advisor, a teacher that can probably point you in the right direction. Sometimes there are literally so many opportunities right under our nose that we don't know about simply because we do not ask. So I would first say definitely check in with your respective institutions and ask those questions. Hey, are there any research opportunities available? Even if that means you are knocking on people's doors, asking about it, sending emails about it. That's one way to get access to some of those opportunities. The other way I think you can get involved in research is through the Student National Medical Association. By a show of hands, how many people know about this organization? Okay. All right, a couple. So the Student National Medical Association, it's an organization that is focused on those who are underrepresented in medicine and creating culturally competent doctors. And they give so many opportunities in many different ways. So they give research as well as mentorship too. I would advise, as pre-med students, which you all are, to join as a pre-med member. You can go to snma.org. They have both 1 year and 2 year memberships, anywhere from like $20 to $30. And I think it's worth it. So they will send out weekly emails for different opportunities that you can partake in, including research. And I think there's probably some people here who participated in some of the SNMA stuff. So the link. So I'm going to share this with Ms. Daphna, and then this can also be the site. So no worries about the link, or Kathy, you can also probably just put the link in the chat. Thank you so much. The other place I think you can get research opportunities is the National Institute of Health. So the NIH, it has many research training programs, and it's to further the knowledge and understanding of research in the biomedical sciences. And so it's opportunities that are available for all levels. So high school, undergraduate, postgraduate, med students, fellows, residents, for everyone. So checking out that website, you can get plenty. And NIH actually has a lot of funding. So, you know, if you're looking for something that you are getting paid for rather than paying, that is definitely one of the places to go. And I'm always an advocate for that. Okay. Another place I would say is the Association of American Medical Colleges. They literally have a list of summer research opportunities for undergraduate pre-med students. So if you're an undergrad, this is specifically for you. If you don't have an AAMC account, I would advise you right after this to go and create one, okay? Because it is so necessary that you start to get into the know about the AAMC, because it has a lot of information there that is important for you, okay? The only thing is that for the summer programs this year, a few of them, the deadlines have just passed. But what I could say is it doesn't hurt to ask if you see something that you like. It doesn't hurt to ask and say if there's any room available, are they still accepting applications? Because sometimes what happens is they'll put a call out and they didn't get as many applications that they thought they would, or they extended it but haven't necessarily put it on the website. So closed mouth does not get fed, okay? Definitely go and ask about it. Even if the deadline has recently passed, I'm talking like just yesterday. And then there's a few others that are you can probably still apply for this summer. And then for my high school students, there's two particular places I think you can get. There's more, but two that I'd like to highlight is the California Academy of Science for high school students. It's a multi-year, multi-round paid internship for students in the Bay Area who come from communities that are underrepresented in STEM. And so, again, I have a link for that. I would share that with Ms. Dauphin, and you all can have that.
I'm putting it into the chat real time. You're doing great.
She got it. Thank you.
And then I would also say Cosmos, which is the California State Summer School for Mathematics and Science. And that's a 4-week like summer residential pre-college program. So anyone who's demonstrated an interest in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, like that is something that you all can participate in as well. And I believe that one also is cost-free. So that's just to name a few. And I think if you go into these websites, it will unlock so many other opportunities for you all to look at.
Yeah, those are amazing. So thank you for compiling those.
Very good.
I will just add that often national organizations and whatever you're interested in, so for instance, neurology has the AAN, will also have opportunities like this and really want to encourage early learners, which I would consider all of you to be. And so I would look there too. If you have, a specific interest, if you have a specific question that you already know about, I bet that you'll find mentorship and find ideas at the national organization there too.
Okay, you guys are full of information. Wow, this is a great workshop. Okay, so does anybody else have any other questions before we move forward? Any other comments or something burning that you guys would like to know about research?
Will those two ladies be there in person tomorrow?
Unfortunately, they will not. Coffee is actually in Washington. And Anna is going on to present. Aren't you? Are you the one present? Are you going to be? You're not going to be there tomorrow, though, right?
I won't be there tomorrow.
No, she's trying to finish. She's going to get that real white coat. But don't worry, they will continue to come back, and maybe they'll be so gracious as to share some of their contact information. Okay?
Makes me want to do research.
Yeah. That was Dr. Brooks, right?
And I'm gonna go back and do some research. Come on.
That was so inspiring. Okay. All right. So is there anything else you ladies would like to share, or anybody want to ask any other questions? Let me ask that because we are about 5 to 10 minutes ahead of schedule.
So I see a question in the chat.
Where?
Is by Martin. Thank you. Should you try and get your research published if you can?
Oh, good. Okay.
100% yes. I think Kathy touched on this a bit, but think of publications as like your deliverable. It is your currency. And so, yes, while you are able to talk about your research experience, when you have something that is published, it is stamped into the world of research for life. And you want it to be something that people can refer to time and time again. Okay. And when you have something published, it shows that those in the peer review bodies have taken a look at it. They have deemed it as something that is very important, that is something that it's contributable to the field of medicine and the field of science. So having it published it's not only a great accomplishment, it is a huge accomplishment actually, but also it's something that, you know, it will live on forever. So definitely, if you can get something published, that should be your end goal.
I will just add, as I did in text, this is really, really hard. The quality of research that you're able to do before you get into medical school, honestly, is just, it's just harder, right? The quality of research that people like to see published is like large, well-funded, randomized control trials. Like I haven't even been published on one of those yet. Like that's really hard to get into. And so I think that it is important to also see things like poster presentations, things like case reports, things like reviews potentially you could contribute to writing, where you're not creating your own research, but you're gathering other people's research as important stepping stones in order to get to that point where you can publish your own research. It's not a bad thing if you're not publishing your research all, you know, in high school and college. Like that is a huge thing to achieve, and the stepping stones to get there are important.
Y'all are so kind of chat. Thank y'all. One thing I did want us to address is since research has been interwoven into our careers, how do you balance it, right? Like how do you do your research and treat your patients and have a life outside of medicine? How does that work?
Well, I have not figured it out yet. I will say in medical school, they started naming people and it made a lot more sense. And I noticed that I could only really be a 2, maybe a 3 hyphenate. So you'll find clinician, and then you'll find like, you know, a research clinician or a clinician educator, or, you know, there will be other names that go on that. And I really have always identified as a clinician educator. I really want to treat patients, and I really want to be able to teach in some way. And those are my 2 loves. And really the way that research has evolved into something I have enjoyed is because I can accomplish those things within the research I'm completing, but research is never going to be sort of the center of what I do. And so I really only do it when I'm inspired to answer a question I think that will make the experience of my patients better. And so it's very much still just a passion project for me. I will probably never be applying for grants that will fund that time. And it's about finding a place that will support that, right? So for instance, at the university I'm at right now, once you become a junior faculty, they give you 20% of your time. So, you know, you have 100%, 20% of your salary is just for free time to figure out what you want to do, whether that's teaching, whether that's research. And then over time, after 5 years, you sort of fill that in with whatever you've decided to do. But I think it's important to find different institutions that are supportive of having research in whatever, you know, percentage that you want to have it in. Yeah.
Great.
I think it's less time in real life.
Great. Malik, do you have a question? You have your hand up. I don't know whether. No? Okay. All
There's
right.
one in the chat.
You see it?
Yes. So Rachel, thank you for asking a question. How can you find ways to enjoy research if you're not really passionate about it? I love this question because I think we have to circle back to like what research can be. I think research takes on so many different forms, and Kathy kind of walked us through that. And I really just think it starts with just having a question. And I want to give you all an example of how I merge passion with research. And so one thing I like to do is I love to dance. I have been a dancer since I came out the womb, okay? And so it's something that I have carried with me throughout high school, college, and I still do it now in medical school. And it's something that I like to share with people. And like I told you all, I'm also interested in cardiovascular medicine. There is one particular program for people, and these are patients when I say people, who have had some sort of cardiovascular event. Again, let's say they've had a heart attack or they have heart failure. There is a thing called cardiac rehabilitation, which is essentially a form of, I want to say, guided exercise or gym time for patients to get their hearts to be better. And one thing I realized is that though that there are a lot of people who would qualify to participate in cardiac rehabilitation, there's not many people who are using it. Like, let's say 100% of the people who qualify, only 30% of those are actually using cardiac rehabilitation. And so some of the questions that I have is like, why is that, right? Are people not being referred? Is there an access issue? Or is it just an interest issue? Like, there are people who don't like going to the gym and running on a treadmill, but there are probably people out there who love to dance, and dance crosses so many different cultures. And so one of the things that I've proposed is, how can you incorporate something like that into cardiac rehabilitation? And that's something that I have introduced to my PI. He loves it. It's something that I'm continuing to work on. But that's one of the ways in which I have used a passion of mine. And now it's research, and joining those two together, it's like, it's magic. So I think it's really about letting your passion lead you to the kind of research that you're interested in doing. So I think there's research out there for you. It's just a matter of finding, knowing what your passion is and letting that lead you.
Great. I will take maybe the last couple of minutes here to respond to Malik's question, which I think is fantastic, which is, if you want to be an MD, PhD candidate, how much research should you have to be considered a good applicant? I don't think either of us are those, but some of my best friends from medical school are MD, PhD candidates. And I would say that when they were applying, all of them had at least 1 year of research, and many of them had shown growth within a lab. So they had started in a lab as, maybe someone who was just like watching, and then they had learned skills in that lab and become, more of a doer of the procedure, whatever they're doing. One worked with mice, and one was doing like cell work and injecting cells. And so I would really look for a lab experience, and then have continuity with that lab experience. And then I think it also was important for them to actually have papers in a way that I don't think it has been for just MD candidates, for me and for Anna. And if you're in a lab and you have the same mentor, those mentors often just add you to papers. You're not going to be first author or anything, but you'll be sort of in the middle, and that'll help you get your name out there. They'll allow you to be the first presenter for a poster that they're putting on, and obviously you'll have contributed to the work, even if it wasn't your initial question. So I would invest in those things, but I think at least a year, and probably a little bit more with a lab and showing growth within that.
Are there any other questions? Does anybody see any? Julian, are there levels of hierarchy in research? You guys can answer that one.
Absolutely. There are levels of hierarchy in everything, unfortunately. Yeah, but I think that they are somewhat helpful. I think the easiest way to understand hierarchy is the authorship. So whenever you read a paper, you'll see a first author, a last author, and then the authors in between. And that tells you how the people on the paper worked on that. So the first author is often the most junior person who's working on it. They're contributing to the paper, and they're writing most of the paper. Sometimes the question was their idea, but sometimes not. And then the last author is the person who's either running the lab or overarchingly has the most information about the study or the industry that you're talking about. So they're going to be a senior faculty member that's really guiding the first author. And then there are people in between, and the people in between, if you're, third or fourth of seven, so very, very middle author, then probably your experience or your contribution was, doing some chart review and rereading the paper and doing edits rather than doing a lot of the sort of like statistical analysis. And that will vary in terms of the contributions that you make. But I think that's true. And I think that more that you have published work, the higher that you go on that hierarchy.
Okay. Any more questions? I see Mason has his hand up, or is Mason still need a question? Yes.
Yeah, I had a pretty broad question on the importance of maybe finding smaller research where you can, specifically as a high school student. I'm still a junior in high school, so obviously I might not have access to the same amount of resources, but kind of finding research, or the importance of finding research where you can by being a part of smaller things, and or delegating your efforts to other places as you approach pre-med and undergraduate studying.
Yeah, I think some of the resources that I mentioned earlier is one way to go about it. I think at the high school stage, it's more about kind of learning the process of research, like learning how to create an experimental question, knowing how to create a hypothesis, just like going through that process is really important. And I think the resources I've provided are more programs that help to give you that structure to do that. Again, those are by no means the only two that are out there. But, and again, I think you can also ask and check in with your respective high school and see what programs they have available that allows you to dig deeper into the sciences.
Thank you so much.
We have answered you guys have answered all the questions. Did we miss anybody? Because it sounded like you had quite a few questions. You guys did an amazing job. I learned a lot too. So, and I'm sure everybody else, let's give them a nice round of applause for all this great information, everybody. Thank you. Okay, if no one else has any other questions, then thank you, Dr. Henfield, and thank you, almost Dr. Hannah Wolfall. Thank you so much, and we will hope to see you soon, and take care.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
Great. Happy to share with you all. I do think there are other questions coming in, but we are out of time. But I'm happy to chat offline. I will provide my email. Feel free to hit me up with any questions that you have. I'm happy to answer them. So I'll drop that in the chat.
Okay, and we will take all that. And again, their presentations, they had some PDFs with great information on research. Both of they will be on the website. Okay, so you guys could look at that. Donna should have our web designer should have that up soon. All right. And anything else on there? I don't think so. Okay. All right. Thank you. Bye.
Everyone.
Bye-bye. Okay, everyone, we are towards the end of the day. We just have a few wrap up. First of all, Carolyn and Julie, thank you for getting us through this day. Let's a special thank you to both of them. It's been a little rocky, but we got it because some people couldn't get in, and we apologize for that at the very beginning. Some of you sent emails saying that you couldn't get in, so we apologize that it takes a minute to navigate. What we have is a room behind the scenes which you can't see, and we put the speakers in that room because they may be coming from other areas, and they maybe just now the first time they're meeting, so we'd like to put them in that room first. So they had a pretty daunting job of navigating between what we call the green room, the main session, and then trying to make sure they're navigating and connected with me. So a special thanks to both of them, Carolyn and Julie, and they will be there tomorrow. Okay. All right. Let's wrap up and then we'll see if you guys have any other questions, because we try to be as close to being on time as possible. Okay, wait a minute. It's got a big, okay, here we go. First of all, are there any questions that anybody has that they would like to bring up right now or would like for us to answer? And you can just speak up. You can take yourself off of mute and speak up so that everybody can hear them. About tomorrow or today even.
Goodness, Dr. Bello, I was wondering, will anybody at any point be talking about kind of some of the differences of applying to medical school and applying to a DO school?
No, because, well, let me say this. Tomorrow, when you see that panel, even if it's a one-on-one, or even in the mentoring session, you can ask them that, okay? The difference between medical schools and DOs. I wish we had caught that earlier, but that's okay. We can get that answer tomorrow, okay? And I don't think, is Dr. Miller still on? No, she's probably gone. Okay.
Yeah, one comment.
Yes, I'm still here.
Oh, okay, here she goes. Okay, can Dr. Miller? Who asked the question? I'm not sure who it was. Whoever asked it. Say it again.
Will there be any DOs there tomorrow?
I don't think so. But did you want to know about the difference between DO and versus going to a medical school?
I'm kind of familiar with the difference between the paths, just more people talking about the process with so I'm very much so leaning towards applying to DO schools, and I noticed that it just hasn't been brought up.
Yeah, it hasn't. Dr. Miller, would you mind addressing that? I don't think there are very many DOs in California, for example. Are there? Maybe you could address that.
Yeah.
Can we
comment? Stefana? At my hospital, I work with at least 5 DOs.
No, that's not what she's asking. She's asking about the medical school part.
Yeah, and I know, and there are a number of DOs who practice at the hospital, and yeah, I can get information from them and bring it forward.
Okay, and then Dr. Miller can, and we're trying to see, I think you also want to know, since you're leaning towards a DO, right? Is that correct? You're leaning towards?
Yes.
Yes. So she's trying to find out, like, also where she can go to. She wants to go there. Where, there's someone even in California, a DO, where she can go.
Yeah, an example.
Is that Turo, Dr.
An example is Turo Medical School, which is a DO school here in Northern California, and several of the doctors that work in our hospital are from Turo, Touro.
Do you know about that medical school? I'm not sure. I can't see who answered that question.
Yes, I'm familiar with it.
You're familiar with it. Okay. All right, Jazz. Thank you. And Dr. Miller, do you have anything you would like to add on that?
No, that was the one that I was going to recommend that she contact, but there's also one in Southern California as well. I'm blanking on the name, but they are around.
Yeah.
And I would suggest that she contact them to find out more details about what the process is. It's actually pretty similar, but there may be some nuances about it that it would be important for her to know.
And Jazz, I think they're more in the East Coast. Is that correct? Like in Philly and so forth? Is that correct?
No, they're scattered all around.
They are? I thought there were a lot in the East. Okay.
No, they're scattered.
Okay.
There's several in Southern California. There's several in Northern California. And Turo is the one that the band.
Yeah, Turo would know. She knows about Turo.
Yeah.
Did you want to add any more, Jazz, on that one? Or any more questions maybe we could find out?
I saw in the Princeton presentation, she said that there are like 38 schools, but it didn't
Uh-huh.
identify the 38. I screenshot that slide when she brought it up, but I'll just have my questions ready tomorrow. I am familiar with PCOM in Philadelphia, so the Philadelphia
Right.
school. And I'm really interested in that school because Meta Christie, the first Black woman, she graduated from there. So I mean, but I don't know about many of them, and I'm at San Francisco State right now, and that's also something that has kind of been a gray area, just finding more information about the path to osteopathic. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, if we, yeah, that maybe we can find out a little bit more. Oh, I know who's going to be there tomorrow. Dr. Neela, you may want Naila Thompson. I think she's a DO. Dr. Miller, NAILAH I think she's going to be there tomorrow, Jazz. Okay, and if you get if she is, she'd be a great one to talk to also. Okay.
There are people putting some things in the chat that might be helpful to you.
Okay. All right. All right. Is there anything else? Any other questions that we may have missed? Let's see. All right. All right. I think that, oh yeah, there's a lot. Okay. All right. So let's just take a few minutes to go over tomorrow. Does anybody have any questions? Everybody's clear about what to wear, where to go, what time to be there. You know, the day is going to start off with your registration. There'll be a welcome and a panel from medical schools, and then we'll have a speed mentoring session. And when you check in, you'll have your white coat, you get stethoscope, you get badge, the whole bit. And the speed mentoring session will run really, we hope to make it run smooth. But essentially it will be all of the doctors and medical students and mentors will be at various tables. You will be on the side. There will be signs on these various tables, and you will have the opportunity about a few minutes to figure out which one and to go to that table to talk to that person and connect with that. And there's about 8 chairs at each table, and there'll be a couple of mentors at each table, and then we'll switch again. Then after that will be the luncheon, and you will have another chance to find people that you may want to connect with, and hopefully they will be able to be supportive in your journey to become doctors. So that's sort of that morning, and then that's lunch, and then afterwards we go into the mock clinics, and that's a lot of fun. The mock clinics always cause us to be late because they don't want to leave. You guys don't want to leave. So, but hopefully it will be a wonderful afternoon, a wonderful day, and you'll learn a lot and get a lot of good connections and a good family to start your journey to become doctors. Okay? So just remember, don't bring a lot of stuff because you're going to have to carry that around because there's nowhere to put it. So, but you will have a nice big bag to put everything in, and it should be a great day. Okay. Okay. Anything else? Are we leaving on time? We're actually ahead of schedule. Carolyn, how are we doing? Julie.
I'm trying to address some questions in in the chat. So I think I'll do it here real quick.
Well, unless if they're by
tomorrow, they're about.
Okay. Well, let me see. Let me just do that then. Wait a minute. For ladies, is it okay to wear pants and nice shirt? Yes, it is. Okay. Just to confirm, yes, is that the Claremont yes, in Berkeley. That's correct.
Time?
Huh?
Check-in time?
It's on, read your email. That's what I'm going to say to that.
And parents do not stay with you. Parents come back at 2 p.m. for the parent workshop.
No, parents come.
12:30.
No, wait. Yeah. Okay. The registration, the parents come in for the registration. They have a check-in time, and then they go to their parent workshop. When they're in their parent workshop, you're in the mock clinics. For those of you who have parents and families that are there, they will not be into anything that you are doing. Again, this is for you and all the people that are supporting you to become doctors. Okay. Were there any other questions about that?
There's a question about how many research opportunities. And I would say really focus on quality rather than quantity. And think about whether your project really adds to the story, your total story about who you are.
Yeah.
Because we have applications coming in and, there's not a complete story about what this person is really interested in. The research is in one area and it's just it's just one or two experiences and it's very short. Their creative work is in another area. Their personal statement doesn't mention anything related to the research they've done. And that doesn't really bode well for getting a complete sort of uniform picture of somebody who's really following a passion or an interest. So really think about quality. It's not quantity, it's quality.
Very well said. Dr. Miller will be on that panel tomorrow, and that I was thinking about in the morning. And it was the same thing. She was the one that really helped me to understand, for example, the understanding of those people who want to shadow and those people who are really engaged in a real specific activity that whether it was volunteering or something or working on a program or a project, and how valuable, not to say that shadowing is not important, but that is more passive versus being engaged. And you want to have as strong of an application and well-rounded and connected as possible. Because remember, you are competing and they get, look at the number of applicants that apply. So just like us, you guys are the lucky ones. We didn't admit many, many, many students, most of the students, but you guys showed something. And you need to remember that whatever you said or something you did or something in your little application, even though it was brief, led us to think to admit you to this program. And just know that, have that faith, understand that, close out the noise. There's so much wild stuff going on. Just know that there are people that really want you to become doctors and that you are going to be a doctor and what that means. So just hang on to that. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.